Welcome to episode 81 of your Missing the Point podcast, where we discuss the weird, the wonderful, and the downright bizarre aspects of life as we have conversations with people from all over the world. The Great Pyramids of Egypt have mystified mankind for thousands of years. Every major civilization has marveled at their grandeur. From the Greeks to Romans, Napoleonic French, all the way through to the height of the British Empire. These people have argued their age, their purpose, and their means of construction. These mysteries have seemed to baffle mankind. The Egyptians themselves never recorded how these massive structures were built. This has left a massive part of their history in the dark, a place where people have floated ideas of ancient aliens, anti-gravitic technology, and even Nephilim incursions. The biggest gap in this mystery is left open is for the grifters and pseudo-scientists to peddle their theories. Baseless claims that aren't rooted in science or history have become far too popular. Recently, underground scans depicting large structures below the Great Pyramid of Khufu have taken the truth community by storm. Once again, the post-truth age rears its ugly head, in which prominent well-known content creators choose to push easily verifiable psyops and fraudulent research for their own monetary gain. To help me look into this subject much more, I'm joined by friend of the show, Brandon Kroll of the Manor Daily podcast. Welcome, Brandon.
Hey, thanks for having me back on, Drew.
No, mate, need you for this one. You've got a very different angle on this at the end, but
Yeah,
there's definitely some chicanery going on with how big this story blew up in such a short period of time. Am I right?
and it's not a coincidence when it did, and that's going to be partially what I touch on, especially being in the on the state side. I see a lot of different symbolism with our money. So, needless to say, I had to talk about what's going on with these pyramids because obviously this is part of the end game, and I kind of want to just bring out to people. I don't know if it's true or not, but I'm just going to show you some stuff that the occult believes and saying I could see this where this could possibly be going, especially after some of the other stuff we've done on Christian Conspiracy Coalition.
And this is going to be the great thing I think about this episode is we're coming from it from two different sides of a coin, but they're both extremely linked. And this
Yeah.
is going to be the interesting. I'm coming at it from a very rooted in science, some people would say a secular approach.
Mm-hmm.
But then you've got the spiritual symbolic side on the other end of it, which I think they do meet in the middle somewhere. So it'll be interesting to see how they line up. For the most part, though, what I've seen is, like I said, some very prominent, large content creators that people have followed for many years who you would think by now have the due diligence to do their best research to make sure that the truth they're putting out is verifiable and fact driven. Unfortunately, what we're seeing is full-time content creators just grabbing onto the latest trend, the next algorithmic high, and riding it without verifying it, which is really disappointing. We deserve better truthers at this stage of the game. Unfortunately, we see the hook of the financial and monetary gain, the clout chasing, it takes over. And you can see when these big personalities start off at very humble beginnings and built themselves up. And you can see that point in which their dynamic changes and they are driven by the clicks and the likes and the content being big and prominent and the financial side that comes along with that.
Well, yeah, I think turning it into a den of thieves is a classic trope because what are they doing? Well, it's like the what that was called when Christ was going into the temple. It was called at that time the bazaars of Ananias, the high priest, and he was making it quote unquote convenient by bringing the sacrifices in an area where it's like you don't have to go and do the due diligence of finding it yourself. We have a nice little selection here on display. And it kind of deludes the whole experience of I am taking personal accountability for my sins by bringing said sacrifice to temple. Needless to say, as well, now you're having the money lenders doing their thing in his house. It's like you've inverted the whole intention of what my house of God is supposed to be, and we're still doing that today. That's what the occult would call Kabbalah. You're taking God's word and you're inverting and twisting your own interpretation upon it. You're creating God in your own image to make him palatable. And palatable, oftentimes, what does that do? Well, about the money. If I don't have enough money about this, and so you kind of sell quote unquote your soul to the devil, as we always hear with these celebrities in Hollywood. And it's like, yeah, because you've lost your integrity and self accountability of having a standard. And that's what is dying to self daily is saying, I'm not going to compromise and let myself basically become morally corrupt from what I'm supposed to be upholding as a representative and ambassador of the kingdom of heaven.
And I think we're seeing that far too much lately in the truther community, but to a greater extent, the Christian podcasting kind of communities on platforms that
Mm,
it's rising. Christianity has had this recent resurgence with this past generation or two. And unfortunately, they're tying in Christianity to aspects of conspiracy theory and the occult that aren't necessarily linked, but they're making connections that aren't there. And it's this strange attempt to try and get what's cool, hot, and sexy and tie it to Christianity because they know both are trending at the same time. If they combine the both of them, hey, that's great. That's buku bucks for us who are making the content, as they would say. It's deceptive. It's this weird thing where it's tantamount to bearing false witness. If at the end of the day
Mm.
you know you're putting out information that you in your heart know is not true, it's a lie for the first one. Second, it's deceptive. Third one, it's actually dangerous to the spiritual warfare that exists because you're leading the flock astray. And these people, ultimately, they'll be judged on that at the end of the day. Not by us, by a higher power. And I think that's what they really need to be careful of.
It's terrifying, and to do it so willy-nilly, like with a lot of stuff, even if you don't know, you have to state that from the get-go that I don't know, and don't go following this. And then that's the biggest thing is like, guys, I'm not in this for followers, I'm in it for doers. Do your due diligence, research it yourself. I'm just telling you something your pastor didn't. I want you to go and say, hey, does this make any sense? So when you make it applicational, you don't get freaked out with things going on in the world. Because I'm trying to say, hey, don't buy this person, don't buy that party, don't, I'm trying to warn you, stay in the straight and narrow. I'm not telling you with my stuff to follow me because I know it all. And then I sit on a stage with a suit like a certain BC guy that talks about all this freaking pyramid stuff and Tammuz and all this. And I'm like, no, that's not what this is about as a Christian. As a Christian, we're supposed to be helping build the ecclesia so that we're also sober and vigilant and looking out for who's going to be deceiving us. And I don't think we teach that too much in modern Christianity.
No, not at all. And I think this is where I come from the perspective that I don't throw science away completely. I think science is just a mechanism as humans we use to understand God's creation. And if we're not using all the data sets and all the pieces of evidence we can to inform our opinion, we're
Mm-hmm.
doing ourselves a disservice. And unfortunately, a lot of people aren't doing that. This is the biggest issue with this Kufu pyramid scan is that the technology, the science of it falls apart straight away. And if you'll indulge me, Brandon, I'm just going to go through some key points of the issues that I found in researching this research paper,
Sure.
ironically, very loosely termed a research paper. So, researchers from Italy and Scotland have claimed that they found a vast underground, undiscovered structure below the Khufu pyramid, directly down, going 6,500 feet. For those of us with a metric system, that's 1,981.2 meters. A scanning system called synthetic aperture radar, or SAR for short, was purportedly used to gather the information on these structures. Sounds pretty scientific. They've used a scanning technology, but that's where it really falls apart from the get-go, the
Mm-hmm.
technology they've used. Some very big technological limitations with SAR. While it can penetrate dry soil and sand, the depths of its reach can only be done so in the tens of meters. Tens of meters. Not hundreds, not even thousands, just tens of meters. These scans were not taken by the Scottish and Italian researcher team themselves. This is second-hand data, so it's secondary or even tertiary information. They simply interpreted it a different way. They took someone else's scans, looked at the scans, and with a very large amount of artistic interpretation and imagination, they decided that these were large columns going down with spiraling staircases, which you
Yeah.
can't possibly get from those scans. You can see that there's formations or things underneath potentially in these scans. And they've had a lot of imaginative interpretation based on this. Nicole Sicolo, rather, the research head, has said that these columns going down have a spiral staircase around them, which I've just said you can't tell from such rudimentary scans. All of these scans, I might add, are presented as a side view. So if you're using a scanning
Mm-hmm.
system that goes from the top down, how are we getting these side views on that? I'll get
Right.
to their argument for that a little bit later. It's quite nuanced
It's
and
similar to the
very
moon
imaginative.
landing.
Oh yeah, very
Who's
imaginative.
filming this thing from the outside? How does, like, we have tech that's just going to spiral out and land perfectly and catch the first astronaut walking out? Sorry. Just throwing that out there.
That's okay. But I'm thinking this whole scan, this whole pyramid mystery stuff, it plays into a very big economy. And the economy is called they couldn't have built it economy.
Mhm.
We've got people that have been on Ancient Aliens, that have written books, have done talking circuits, have been to conferences, have been on documentaries. It's a multi-million dollar industry that they couldn't have built it philosophy. Some people, such as Christopher Dunn, have been blown out of the water as being frauds. This is a gentleman who people might remember from back in the day being on Ancient Aliens with a square and putting it up to points of the pyramid, going, see, that's perfectly square. They couldn't have done this. And then you look through his photo file, he's got a square and there's a drop of like 12 degrees going off and it's not perfectly square. So we have this weird perception that the pyramids are perfect in every way. And don't get me wrong, they are a monumental piece of construction that we truly don't understand. There's a lot of theories, and that's the mystery about it. Unfortunately, that mystery opens up the floodgates for people to take advantage and grift on it. And this is what I'm seeing with this latest research data from the Italian and Scottish researchers. Now we get to the authors. There are two authors on this paper. The first is Filippo Biondi, a PhD, who's a genuine scientist whose work revolves around SAR technology. So this guy lends credence to the technology and the scientific method. Great. So there's one person who's like the linchpin for legitimacy on this topic. Unfortunately, the second person is less than desirable. The second man, Corrado Malanga, an Italian UFOologist, and author of colorful books such as Alien or Demon and UFO of the Mind, is a gentleman that's appeared on multiple podcasts pushing the ancient alien hypothesis for many years before this research paper took place. So my question is, why would a research paper have a verified, scientific backed personality with a ufologist, something that's considered by mainstream to be pseudoscience? This would tell me that this is a fraudulent paper, a third-rate paper at best, or it's deliberately being done as a psyop to put this conversation and into the public discourse and zeitgeist.
It merged the two ideas into becoming a singular entity, which is dangerous. Yeah. Yep.
Absolutely. There we go. All of this blew up from a single man's Facebook page, a post from there. Trevor Grassi, a man who had attended a UFO conference and shared it on his social media after speaking with the researchers. This gentleman, Trevor, after posting this on his Facebook, went from having 3,000 followers on his YouTube to 10,000 in the space of 2 days. Now, for a lot of content creators, it can take anywhere from 3 to 5 years, even 10 years to get 10,000 followers. And that's if
Yeah.
you're not horrifically shadow banned where your follow count doesn't go up.
Yeah.
So it's a bit interesting that the one person and personality who put this information out instantly has this huge following, instantly appeared on multiple podcasts as being the person who broke the story to the world about these pyramids, and suddenly he's got this huge following, doesn't really line up as being organic or genuine. All right. Now I'm going to come back to that argument about how the pyramid could possibly have scanned something down vertically,
Yeah.
but we're getting this horizontal view. So the argument given for this SAR side is now being weaseled and manipulated into an unproven and unverified technique. What they're suggesting is that the SAR scan, which is like a radar type of a technology from either a satellite or a land-based scanning device, somehow hit the very tip of the pyramid, and that radar resonated through the pyramid all the way down through the complex below and echoed through at its resonance frequency. So it mapped it out like what a bat or a dolphin would do with sonar.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it reverberated from the tip of the pyramid, went through the base, and into these undiscovered complexes below. It did it that way, rung it like a bell, the gentleman says. We rung the pyramid like a bell using its resonance frequency, very new agey if you ask me, and that's how they got to it. On its face, pseudoscientifically or truther-based, people would say, yeah, that makes sense. That's resonant frequencies, and they're just mapping it out. But let me put it into context for you. Let's pretend, Brandon, I've never been inside your house. I don't know the layout.
Right.
I don't know where your lounge room is, your kitchen, anything. But there's a loose nail on your door, a loose nail hanging out. I could use this technology, pinpoint that nail, hit the nail on the tip, use that as its resonance frequency, and map the entirety of your house out. Does that at all sound plausible to you?
No, but it's funny that you use that analogy because when they were selling this house with the new landlord, I said, you guys can go in and take photos. And I sent them photos when I first moved in because I want to make sure everything's good so they can compare and contrast when they're selling the house. And he said, no, we didn't have to take any photos. I said, well, why? He says, because we have this new technology where you can bounce it off the beams in the house and they can get the dimensions and all that. I was like, what? This is a thing? Like beams? You're able to bounce things off of beams to get dimension measurements? He says, yeah. And I was immediately thinking to myself, am I old? He's the 50, 60 something year old gentleman telling me about this. And I'm like, this is a thing? So the fact that you're using an analogy, I'm like, no, yeah. I'm like, I want visuals. I want to see what the rooms look like. I don't want to go off of beams and bouncing off all this stuff. I'm like, it's not worth it, especially with ancient stuff. I want to know what specifically am I going to be seeing. I don't want to just go off of a nail at the tip of the iceberg and say, yeah, that's definite science, and say that's true. I want to see it with my own eyes.
And this is the thing I'm finding with it. It's the definition of pseudoscience. They're using application of proven science and thrusting it into a field that they're trying to prove an outcome without actually testing the hypothesis first. So they're
Right.
using SAR, this aperture sonar detection technology. It works, doesn't work for the application they've used. That's why when you see they find these pyramid complexes and these temples in Latin America, they use LiDAR detection because that actually goes through the tree canopies, through the soil, and detects things underground. SAR doesn't work that way. So we throw the case off on that alone. Outside of that, they're twisting the technology into a proposed idea that we see in real life applications of other technology. So, like you said, mapping of internal houses,
Mm-hmm,
governments
mm-hmm.
of the world, builders, contractors have had this technology for a while now. Theoretically, you can do that with your house Wi-Fi. Your Wi-Fi signal sends up a ping,
Yeah.
it's the inside of your house out. So they're giving these basic understandings that at bare minimum the truth the community knows of because of conspiracy, and they're mushing them together to fit their narrative. There's
Mm-hmm.
never once been any kind of physical construction found under the pyramids other than tunnels. And there's a big issue with this because if there were those columns, they would have been found a long time ago physically. For them to go that far down doesn't make sense because the pyramids themselves are sitting on sand and bedrock. So whoever
Mm-hmm.
allegedly constructed this, the structures underneath are far more engineered and profound than what the pyramids could ever be because they go
Right.
so far down. They're hollow and they have staircases. It doesn't pass the pub test. If you were to tell someone in the pub about this, they wouldn't believe you. And that's generally how you come across fact and fiction. Unfortunately, I think they're trying to merge enough facts into this fictional tale to make it palatable. And unfortunately, the ruse has fallen on the truther community, and you have your big content creators that are hooking into it. You've got the ever popular ancient alien hypothesis people who are using pyramids and ancient structures to prove alien intervention. But now, unfortunately, you've got this grifting situation amongst the Christian community or the esoteric community, suggesting that this was all fallen angel, ancient technology, and they're using this story as a linchpin without vetting it to see if it's true or not. I don't know who built these ancient structures. Nephilim, ancient fallen technology, could very well be involved in this. I don't know, but I'm humble enough to
Right.
go, hang on, let's look at this story on its basis first before we start
Mm-hmm.
jumping to conclusions. Unfortunately, you've got some very big podcasts like The Confessionals coming
Yep.
out and putting all their weight behind it being ancient alien technology without vetting the story. Really dishonest, pretty unpopular opinion from me, and people are probably going to hate it for calling out such a big platform, but they didn't do their due diligence on this and they should do better. What's worse, you've got people who attached to that particular podcast who did their own story suggesting it was ancient aliens, people that proclaim to be very open to questioning and challenging ideas. And when you challenge them, you get an instant block and you can't
Mm-hmm.
access their comments or their content anymore. So that leads me to believe that this story is a linchpin of a greater psyop to try and get the idea of ancient technology, ancient aliens into the zeitgeist and conversation of not just the truther community, but Christians in general. And
Mm-hmm.
I do believe you've got some broader information around the symbolism and esoteric side of things.
Yeah, especially with Billy Carson. Like when a minute I stumbled onto his stuff, at first I was intrigued. This was about 4 or 5 years ago before I could, fully vet. It's like, okay, interesting. Emerald tablets. This. As I kept digging into the emerald tablets, I was like, okay, so this connects with a Hermes guy. And as I kept digging, I found out Hermes connects with Tammuz and Baal, Nimrod's son. And I'm like, okay, hold up, hold up. That's not a good thing then that you're promoting this guy. I keep digging. Come to find out the Hermetic Kabbalah tree of life at the very top is known as Corona. And that was a huge thing. And that's what again, now you're talking about. I have a question though. This Kufu thing, is that in Memphis, perchance, Egypt?
I believe. Let me double check. I'm going to double check. I thought it
Yeah.
was the Khufu pyramid was named after Khufu, uh, the pharaoh. So it's a part of the Great Pyramid complex. I'm pretty sure it's in
Okay.
Cairo, but I'll double check right now as we're speaking. Please go ahead.
And the only reason I asked that is because when Elon Musk did an interview with Jordan Peterson, he says, "Yeah, our new God he'll come from Memphis," and he's like, "Oh yeah, okay, that sounds interesting." And Elon starts going, he's like, "Yeah, yeah, that's not really funny." Yeah, well, whatever. And he just gives this really weird, Doctor Evil laugh when he's talking about this, and I'm like, is he talking about Memphis, Tennessee, or is it like a double statement that you're making there? Is there something quote unquote from Egypt that you're hinting at? And that's
Yeah,
part of the reason what some of the stuff I'm going to be showing today. I'm like, I don't know, but the timing of this, the year of the election over here, I think you'll see a lot that when I'm bringing it. It's just like I don't know, but as you just said, it's circulating into Christian circles, quote unquote, and a lot of New Agers are picking it up, which is making me put up a red flag. Going, the timing, that doesn't pass the smell test, especially.
no, it's in the Giza complex, so it's the Pyramid of Cheops. It's also known
Okay.
as. But then again, we know that symbolism in general is used. Like how many parts of the United States are named after parts of Egypt?
Right. I mean,
The
that's
New
like
World and
everybody keeps
Old
saying.
World paradigm. So
That's the other one, dude. Was everybody keeps saying, "Oh yeah, America was ancient Egypt." I was like, no, no. The whole premise of Helios means east to west. It's mirror. That's the whole thing in the occult. They like their mirroring, and I'll show that with the 33 and the Ouroboros towards the end of this thing. And I'm like, that's what you guys need to understand because when you're looking at biblical prophecy, and I'm reading about Mystery Babylon the Great, is a lot of the elements with the Catholic Church, 100%. But when I found out America's founded as a Catholic nation, and you're reading Revelation 18, everybody's mourning because they're not making their money off of old Mystery Babylon the Great. Now, does Catholicism make a lot of money through tourism? Yes, but is it enough for people to be weeping that they're losing money from a great nation? Like, I'm like, who is known as the great moneymaker in the world? Who has the all-seeing eye atop of a pyramid in all the world? And this is where I'm going, Helios. Because you're leaving the nuke that we left to start our own thing with Protestantism, and now we're coming back to the great church because we just lost what we had. So, anyways, I could bring up the presentation,
yeah, please do.
and
I've
I'll
always
take.
found on the topic of America, I've always found it fascinating that it was the Puritans and the Reformationists who left the the pushback of the Anglican Church and Catholicism and went to the New World to start a new life. But ultimately, the first thing they did when they got here was start to make a pseudo Greco-Roman culture based on paganistic and very Roman Catholic belief systems.
Yeah, and that is not by mistake. A great book if you could print it off from online. Uh, Rulers of Evil by Tupper Saucy. Dude, it's such a game changer of a read. It's like you hear about, oh yeah, Jesuits, Masons, whatever, but when you read that, you're just like, oh, it's so simple. It's like a child could understand this, and we should be teaching this in grade school, but we don't. We don't. So I called this the Temple of God. um, two pillars for Freemasonry, twin towers, because you can't put in twin towers because that's going to cancel the prompt. Of course, I have the three pillars there, and of course, the devil doing a Kundalini 666 hands. So just throwing that out there. So part and reason. I'm gonna be start. Why is my mouse not working? Give me a second. Enter technical difficulties. Why is it not moving? It's not wanting to go to the next slide. That is probably by design. There we go. So when we were talking about my pet goat, and you're immediately talking about the pyramids, it's making me go, why is this now a thing when we just had the year of the snake? We just had the inauguration in January. Why are they now showing us this thing over here with the pyramids. And I'm watching this My Pet Goat video. And of course, they're showing an alien spaceship coming on top of the pyramid when you first come in, right? They're circling the pyramid. They're showing the all-seeing eyes spinning above it. And I'm like, okay, it's whatever, weird AI thing. Then it's showing the alien ship lands behind, and then it goes somehow inside. So was there an entryway originally? I don't know, but it's like it went through the back door, comes through the middle. I don't know, but then it goes inside, and I see immediately black and white checkered board. We already know what that means with masonry, for, Nimrod. We have all these people in their nice little military outfit caps, and they're standing in the midst of this giant figure sitting on a throne. Now, the imagery that I'm seeing when you first come in, make note of that in the back, what's behind him, the all-seeing eye in the streaks. It's like, okay, that's interesting. This figure then gets up, proceeds to float on like this device, sort of like a hoverboard, like we get from Back to the Future. And he just glides between all these guys. Like, okay, this looks very eerily similar. Have you seen those images of allegedly Gilgamesh's tomb that they found and what other figure? Those mummy-like I was like, kind of looks vaguely similar, but you notice how he's like 2 feet above everybody almost?
There's also some astral projectors and people that can remote view, supposedly, who have seen where the true Ark of the Covenant is, and it's being protected by rows of mummies. It's very
We're
similar
talking
to
about
this.
that today. Yes, sir. And I think you were the one that was pitching. Again, I know he's floating, but that's only like 6 inches. He still would be at about 1.5 feet above everybody. Which you've already shown those images before, and I did in the Are You Ready to Remfan episode talking about Baron. Who is Baron? And the whole aspect of the fiefdom of Europe, lords and serfs. It's a Babel construct, right? And everybody goes back to the mother church for favor. Maybe it is supposed to be hinting at Baron. I don't know. But then they spin around, and what are we doing? We start having these drones lifting up a block, and these little drones.
Oh, not at all related to the drone scare of New Jersey.
Uh-huh. Or even the technology itself. They're showing us with Spider-Man, getting us all into this. Oh yeah, drones could totally lift up an Ark of the Covenant, because we probably couldn't get down there and touch it ourselves, right? That Ark of the Covenant's in there, and we just want to be cautious, right? Because if this is of God, we have to be careful. We can't touch that because we heard what the Bible said, and we've seen
Yeah,
Indiana Jones, right?
yeah, we know what happened to the Nazis. Their faces melted off. We can't have that happen now.
Exactly. So you see them pick that up, and then they have this giant one. And again, I don't know what this is over in the upper right. Someone broke it down before. I can't translate that
It's
for my life.
Islamic. It's Islamic, that's for sure.
Yeah, it
Arabic
definitely looks
scripture.
that way. So maybe it's talking about their Messiah figure or wherever in their text. I don't know. But they have this other drone that comes down, and he does the deed of unlifting the top off the Ark of the Covenant, which, if you're not a Christian and you're listening to this, you're not supposed to touch it. If you watch Indiana Jones, you probably have a little rough idea what we're talking about. But yeah, you're not supposed to touch that. That's supposed to be only lifted by God. If man touches the center outside of the poles, instant death.
Oh, that's
But
why they're
somehow
using a drone, Brandon. It's fine. They just circumvented that little issue.
we can,
No
we
hands
can
touching. It's a drone.
circumvent
It's fine.
around that. Yeah, we can. There's a loophole. It's a drone. It's not us. And what do they show inside? They show Aaron's rod, which was budding in the wilderness, and the 2 Ten Commandments. Now, I think there's supposed to be manna as well in there, but they tend to overlook that. They zoom in on the 10 Commandments, and the next thing we see is everybody sitting in this conference room. World Economic Forum, maybe it's the United Nations, maybe it's somewhere over in the EU,
Maybe it's a
and
little season
everybody's,
conference.
huh?
Maybe it's a
Oh,
little season conference or other conferences that are doing very big amongst the grifting community. But please do go
well,
on.
I was like, why is there so many empty seats? You'd think this one would be pretty big with evangelicals and all this stuff, right?
You would
You
assume
would
so.
think.
They're wearing
But oh,
masks. Yeah, look, he's
no.
he's got a mask on his chin. The guy that's standing up. You know how people used to chin their masks when they weren't really
Or is that a
wearing them?
beard?
Oh, I don't know. I can't tell if it's the blurriness. Could be a beard.
You
Looks like a
know, it
mask,
does
maybe.
kind of look like a mask, like it extends out this way,
Mm.
but a jogger's outfit.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not dressing up for a fancy event. Apparently, they're going to let some, random peeps in here. And then we turn around, and we have the Ark of the Covenant on display next to this guy with the podium. And this is original Torah. Oh,
Oh, here we go. So, oh, here's the original Torah. We do have to live under Noahide laws because this is the original document. There we go, Catholics. We help solve all the problems.
exactly. And as they kept going, they says world news at the podium. They don't show it until you get closer to it. See, all of a sudden now you see it. And I was going, all right. It was written here. Muhammad is the messenger of God.
Here we go. Here's the Chrislam push.
Slash Hermes was nicknamed messenger between the gods, which Trump has name etymology to. Oddly enough. And then I think it says something about. Hold on. Okay, so then it zooms in again. It says the Gospel of Barnabas.
Oh, there
And
we go. Here's our little
yeah,
friend that's been debunked multiple times now.
and then he's holding it up, and I was thinking, is that supposed to be Elon?
Hmm.
I don't know. Kushner, maybe Jared Kushner.
Could be a Kushner.
I could see it, but he's holding gloves while he's doing this, which I'm laughing because if you watch Babylon 5 or something like that, that's a Psychor, they always wear the gloves, and he's like, that's just classic villainy right there. That should be a huge red flag. I don't trust people who wear gloves and tell me my news,
Yeah,
but they're
people who wear
holding it
leather
up.
gloves tend to be bad guys.
Yeah, right. And then he goes, it contains the same verse as the Quran. Gospel Barnabas connects with that. So you're telling me world news, we found the Ark of the Covenant, and now is this how the religions, all the world religions come together? And everybody's clapping, filming, and we're panning out. It was written here, Muhammad is the messenger of God. Oh, sorry. And yeah, that's the end of the video. It just zooms in and closes in on this guy's face. All stuff I just was like, okay. I had somebody message me, have you seen the My Pet Goat thing? And this was like, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years ago. When it first came out, and somebody messaged me like 2, 3 years ago if I could break it down. Obviously, I never found the video. But once you started talking about the pyramid thing and this thing popped up on Facebook, this is how I know God is speaking, because he's saying there's a psyop going on and I need somebody to go counter the false prophets, right? I need you to give some clarity because my sheep are about to be led astray with some of this stupid stuff that they're about to talk about. I've seen other people, they're talking about the Gospel of Thomas. And I'm like, why are we all of a sudden trying to throw in extra books? Because they tainted the original. But we're going to trust original Torah stuff they're adding now. We're going to trust Muhammad's book to be added in, which is saying, I think Muhammad allegedly said in Surah 48, 1 through 2, that he had to ask God for forgiveness, which we have Christ. He was the perfect sacrifice, him who knew no sin. So now you're telling me all of a sudden, oh yeah, we just merge all these things together. No, 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 no. And as you just said, with
Well,
Noah laws, red
this
flag.
this this is a wild thing here because this is very much that video is pushing the idea of Chrislam, that Christianity, Islam are going to
Mm-hmm.
merge together for this one world religion. Very ironically, and this has to be God communicating to us. Roseanne Barr, the American comedian,
Yeah, yeah.
TV show Roseanne, she came out in podcast this week pushing the idea that it's not Jews or Hebrew people that run Hollywood and the entertainment complex. It's Muslims and it's Chrislam, and Chrislam's going to be the greatest threat to humanity. And she said there's not one single person who really runs Hollywood that's Jewish. It's all Muslims and the Islamic Brotherhood. I'm like, okay, bit interesting because that's just not factual or accurate of reality at all. Secondly, she is a Jewish entertainer herself, and
Yes.
now she's suddenly pitching the conversation towards Chrislam being the issue. Interesting. Interesting that this video is now popping up in my life after I've seen that one.
Well, especially with was it Albert Pike said there's 3 world wars,
Hmm.
and the third one was supposed to be against was it the Islamic states and the Christianity, with Christianity being the chief target. So what are we replacing that with? Like everybody's over saying, okay, so why would Candace, right? Why would she leave Ben Shapiro? Why would she worked for two of those Jewish individuals, and why all of a sudden would she just pop, right? Why would she turn on them all of a sudden? And I remember I saw a clip. Shapiro was being asked, "Did you make her sign an NDA?" And he turns around and he goes, "It was like that's a sheepish smile. You don't do that." And then she takes a pose with a black and white checkerboards while walking between two pillars. I said, "Oh boy, is she giving us truth?" Yes, but what we heard from Q, save Israel for last. And I'm going to be explaining why I think that's something they're pitching, because if you go with New Ageism, this thing, I see why that would be a thing, because if you get rid of the Holy Land, and then you can replace it with this theology,
Well, this is the
which,
scary thing when it comes to Albert Pike's idea of a third world war, because when you look at what's currently happening within, say, the socioeconomic and military spheres of the world, we are ramping up to something very realistic of a hot war between nation states. And
mm,
when you look at experts out of the United Kingdom that have an entire PhD in history around academia and civil war, and they're predicting a civil war within the United Kingdom in the next 5 years, very scary. You combine that with the leader of MI6, this is the British equivalent of the CIA.
yeah,
They are saying that the Britain has to get ready for conscription of its young men, but to leave Islamic migrants out of conscription, they're going to be exempt. So what does that do? That sends off the native-born people of your country to go fight in a foreign war while leaving Islamic immigrants in the country to potentially take over after the fact, which would lead to a civil war. So they're subtly planting all these ideas and mechanisms for these things to eventuate because they have their own playbook. They are trying to meet end times prophecy, but they're trying to make it happen. And if you're trying
right,
to make it happen through through the attempts of migrants into Western countries that naturally shouldn't be there and they're only there because their countries have been bombed into oblivion, they have to go somewhere. It's a
mm,
problem reaction solution approach in which they're trying to bring about this Albert Pike's World War III. And I think it's
right.
plainly obvious for those to see.
Well, that's why they're funneling them into all these European countries, because they're intentionally trying to put, what do you call it, militants behind enemy lines, so that when it does happen, as you said, it's like, well, we left home and look what you happened, blah blah blah, and you go against quote unquote the government, and what do you want? We need to establish something that listens to us, right? Sadly. But I was immediately starting to think when I was seeing the whole thing with the pyramid, right? I was thinking this reminds me of that movie from 1972, Lucifer Rising. Again, you have kind of like these alien-like figures that are over the pyramids. The the all-seeing eye is like, okay, maybe it's nothing, but they always are showing us in movies, like a recent one that came out, Godzilla X Kong. Not again, since when has X been used as the word and?
Or
I have
versus.
never seen that, right? You had that little squiggly whatever
Mm-hmm.
thing that I can't pronounce for the life of me, but we have that in the new Empire. And as they're showing this trailer, I didn't even bother to go watch this junk, but as they're showing the trailer, what do they have? They have a beast coming up from the beast of the earth at the base of the pyramid, right? And then
Dude,
it
you've
shows
you've
Godzilla.
you've got to see that movie. It's filled with
Is
so much surface level conspiracy theories that they're just throwing in people's faces. It's like they're trying to propagate ideas for something to manifest later on.
Well, that's I just had dude, I saw like a what 2 minute trailer and I
Mm-hmm.
saw so much, because then I was going, why do we film this in Brazil with the
Mm-hmm.
statue of God with its arms outstretched? It's a hermetic messiah figure, a messenger between these gods, these titans, these Nephilim, like we're just seeing right now. They want to resurrect the dire wolf. Okay. And the guy, well, actually, somebody sent me a clip or a little article. One of the guys from Game of Thrones is actually helping endorse this by sponsoring it with some money. I was like, well, okay, pop culture first with dragons. Now you're doing direwolves. And now I was just saw something before I came on. Trump's getting rid of a whole bunch of logging areas in the United States. And you just fired a whole bunch of park rangers. Why? Why now? Why are you getting rid of all these things? And I listen to it, like, again, I listen to a lot of cryptid stories. Crypto, is this Crypt Osiris? That's why it's an O. Cryptids, Why? Because if these guys are about to come back out and they're the kids of Nephilim or angels, I don't know, just speculating, and you're about to have the end times go on, you don't need forests anymore. The reservation set aside for them. Because you now can come out and stroll around with the regular populace, especially after the Christians are gone. I don't think we'll be around for that part, but it's like, okay, kids, meat's back on the menu. I'm
especially especially
speculating.
when especially when you're pushing out comic books and then adapted TV shows like Sweet Tooth, in which you see animal human hybrids that are born
Yes,
all over the world all at once, that are walking amongst mankind, and you get this idea of the next step in human evolution is human augmentation. And people can argue that the start of that is the whole idea of the gender theory and a changing one's body to align with how you feel as a person. Well, it's a hop, skip,
correct.
and a jump away from. I'd really love to have cat's eyes. Cat's eyes look cool, and I don't want to have contacts all the time. I just want physically, genetically engineered cat's eyes. I'd
Right.
really love to have it like a cat's nose and some pointy ears. Well, we're kind of seeing the outside version of that with the furry culture. And if we're having
Yes.
all these little incremental steps, the logical outcome is it's unveiling of, oh, look, aliens are real, but they're probably not
Mm-hmm.
really aliens. They're something else completely different.
Thank you. It's micro propaganda to get you to the extreme point. Like, what's the spinoff of The Boys with the
Oh,
college one?
Gen V.
Classic case in point right there. Oh, look, I got a cool little tail. Oh, look, I can do this. Right? There are Squid Game with this all-seeing eye thing that they're showing us. Come on. If it wasn't any more in your face, it's there all the time, dude. Catholic churches, sorry, Catholics, but it's there. Just start looking around. I went to just a local one for my uncle's funeral about 3 years ago, and I'm like, oh, I know what that means. Oh my god, that's in here. I'm not surprised anymore because now I know what to look for. You know what I'm saying? It's in our pop culture. The all-seeing eye behind the Pope, aka it's the world with an eye through it, literally the eye or the Roman numeral number one. I one, the God potential with what they're pitching, right?
Not. He's also wearing the Dagon fish hat, which is a Babylonian Sumerian fish god.
Yes. Or Mitre or Mitra. It's only a phrase away. And for me, it's like, okay, Snake Eye, Papal, PayPal. That was something that popped up. Just won't be able to buy or sell. Somebody as an online creator, I get a lot of donations. It all has to go through PayPal. Won't be able to buy or sell, right? And this was something I was thinking when we're hearing about the prophet, the false prophet in Revelation. He makes signs and wonders from the clouds. Well, first and foremost, I was immediately thinking SpaceX with Mr. Elon, but clouds, your digital stuff on the cloud, right? It's like, is there like a double meaning there? I'm not saying we should presuppose something. I'm just saying we know how the devil likes to mimic, right? And create parodies. I'm just saying it's something to be wary of because maybe that is something that's there and we should be a little
Well,
scrutinizing, right?
and on the topic of clouds, Brandon, this is where you can start to hypothesize and think of potential realities that could occur. Wonders in the sky, these images that are being proposed to us are going to occur. A
Yeah.
lot of the things that are being sprayed into the skies arguably are heavy metals that are used for projection in 3D televisions. So some of those
Hmm.
precious heavy metals inside, if they're in the clouds and we've already seen technology of holograms using water vapor, what's to say that the stuff pumped into a high cloud front with some projecting little drones all around it literally isn't the setup for the Spider-Man movie? How we saw all those drones
Yes.
used by Mysterio. We've constantly heard this idea and this conspiracy theory of a Project Bluebeam with a fake alien invasion. And then some people go to the extent of it's God that intervenes and stops the aliens. But you can see those incremental steps at bare minimum being drip fed to us within our psyche. So we think about it. Revelation, the method, who knows? These are just all
Right.
things that we can see subtly occurring over time.
Right. And then that's why they put it immediately from childhood with like, video games and or entertainment. This is with the Simone Biles girl. Why do people post these photos? I saw one lady, again, I don't think she was part of the occult because she had way too low of a following, but she had the MAGA cap covering one of her eyes, and I was like, I'm seeing magician spell, and then you're covering your eye. I'm like, dude, it's like it's already subtly happening, and people don't even realize it because you're being programmed like, oh, this looks normal, this looks hip, this looks cool. And now you start doing what monkey see, monkey do. It becomes pop culture, you know? But again, the Saturn ring and or all-seeing eye, it's the same thing. It represents Saturn equals time. What time? Right? Golden Age, pentagram or 5G, penta, 5 gram, God ram, goat ram, Gadriel from the Masonic apron. I'm seeing this stuff go down.
And
But then I was
the
like,
MAGA hat is just the reincarnation in the 21st century vision of the Frisian cap. And the Frisian
yes,
cap was just the French Revolution version of what the Phoenicians had and what they wore when they got off boats and raped and pillaged the entire Mediterranean peninsula. Like
yes.
this is history repeating, and it's not exactly the same, but it rhymes over time, and you can see those connections for sure.
And is there a reason why they're telling us conspiracy or prophecy is, oh, sorry, is not true history? It's not real. That's why they don't want people to do shows. I just did a show on that Doge, and I said, you guys are going to learn a lot about hats today. And I was covering that one. I was covering where the origins of the Ku Klux Klan cap came along. Why? Because when you understand where these things are and the terms, Doge was a leader in a Phoenician state, you start going, oh, okay. Didn't know that, right? But it's words that we don't talk about anymore. This is why the Catholic Church, they spoke in Latin to their congregation because I have no idea what you're telling me. For all I know, you could be casting a spell upon me, and I have no idea what you're teaching me, right?
Well, they're not wrong when it comes to the idea they're saying conspiracy's not real and prophecy's not real in this regard, because if they're making it happen, it's not happening organically. Therefore, it's not a real occurrence or a true occurrence. It's being manipulated and set up to be that way. So they're subtly telling us the truth that they're
Right.
setting up their own end times prophecy, and it's not real because they're the ones orchestrating it. If it was happening on God's timeline, it wouldn't have to be forced. And they're very much forcing things at this point because it's so obvious. It's far more
Mm-hmm.
obvious than it was in the 80s and 90s, where you had the likes of a Jordan Maxwell and people who sat
Yeah.
down and they did the deep dive on the occult, and they suffered a lot for that, both I think spiritually and physically.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't have to do that anymore. It's so blatantly obvious just in your everyday interactions. You had to be deep diving the internet for months on end to find that information, and now it's just a smorgasbord for whoever wants to find it.
And it also could be easily weaponized and reconfigured, right? Like in real
Yep.
time and change it where, yeah, that's that's where you got to be very careful. And again, do your own digging, do your own reading. That's another thing why books are so expensive, because if you do start reading for yourself or people who've already carried the torch before this with 20, 30-year-old books, Arby's is even hinting at it. The return is near. The return of who? And is that ketchup supposed to be symbolic of bloodbaths?
What isn't
And
Arby's catchphrase, and forgive me because we don't have them in Australia, isn't
mhm,
Arby's catchphrase, we've got the meat?
yes,
What meat are they putting at that pyramid to a sacrifice? Generally, historically, on ziggurats, that was always babies, but anyway.
that's exactly what I was thinking. Is this pools of blood supposed to be dripping off from the pyramid? Is that what you're hinting at? And we've got the meat. Luckily, I've only once been to an Arby's, and it was when I was like 9. I wasn't too keen on what we had. My dad picked it up because we were driving back late from shopping, and I was like, okay, this is kind of crap, but whatever. But yeah, what kind of meat are we talking about in there? And again, we said with the
The
world ahead,
other white meat.
yeah, yeah, white meat. Okay, yeah. But we were talking. I think you shared this in the DM for Christian Conspiracy. But we saw the all-seeing eye at the very tip. That's the equivalent of Saturn. Tick-tock time, right? So that's all being there. And then Melania was wearing the Saturn hat, the black hat with the white stripe through it. I'm not sure, but given this, is this supposed to be midway of the year?
Looks as if it is.
Is it
Interesting.
possible during his presidential military parade that I just posted on today that maybe there'll be an assassination attempt and something will happen with his eyeball? I don't know. Always speculating, but they're already now showing us right now with China, right? So we're around here right now, right about with China time frame. So maybe this will happen in June, where the timetable will turn. I don't know, because I put the sand all at top, and now there's nothing that much at the bottom. And then they're showing us, and again, I saw this in 2025 in October. They're having a was it bird flu? They're gonna be having something. I'm not gonna say anything with the V word because I want to share this on YouTube, and I still have to edit the last one we did. um, but yeah, I'm like, okay, so is that supposed to be? And then we have something with Russia. They're showing us money. Do the stocks go back up? Because they're showing them going up here on the Economist. I don't
Well,
know.
yeah, I think that would lend probably more to a brand new currency. A new currency would allow things to go up. I think ultimately you'd
Possibly.
have to see a crash of some description.
Oh, guess what? Yeah, they have. They look like the electric cars.
Hmm.
Well, who's having problems with electric cars these days? Huh. I don't know, dude. I just laugh. I look at this. I was watching something else, guys, and not a sponsor of the video, but I always refer to the Economics magazine. I was like, really? That's what you're gonna tell me? And he's got millions of followers, and he's an ex-Mormon. I was asking Heidi. I said, "Is there something there?"
Can
That,
you go back one slide, please? I just want to double check
sure,
something.
sure.
When we see this implement for administering certain medical procedures
Hmm.
next to a picture of the globe, it shows Africa, Europe, Asia, and Australia. America's and South
Not seen.
America are not seen. I don't know about you guys, but Australia is having an absolute conniption about bird flu, and we have had egg shortages for like nearly an entire year now because our flocks keep getting culled every time they find a tested bird with it. They have to kill all
Hmm.
the birds, and then they have to wait 4 months to be clear, and then 4 months again with testing outside. But conveniently, every time they go back outside, they find the bird flu again. So, is this something that's mirrored in the United States and North America?
So yes and no. I know sometimes they're going after ducks and geese in Canada. I was hearing some farm, like, yeah, we got, and they're all wearing these hazmat suits, like we have to kill the birds, lady. And she's like, but why? Like you only found one or whatever that had it, and you quarantined it, and so now you're just gonna kill all the healthy ones and stuff like that. We're starting to get better at this current point in time, but who's to say they're not just going to weaponize it and be like, oh, we missed this one group, and or
Oh,
maybe it's going to
mutators.
be it's on your side of the world this time.
Yeah, interesting.
I don't know. I just found it interesting, and then there's like a revolution that goes on. It's going to be a fun year. It's going to be a fun year. Roughly, we're right about here now. We're about to tick into this. Who knows? Is that a rocket? Is that a nuke? Who knows?
Well, here's another interesting thing. I'm sorry because we'll just keep detracting, but
No,
these
no,
things
no.
keep popping us. I was looking. We see the chairman of the CCP there with a timer, and then down into a world potential medical event.
Hmm.
The interesting thing coming out of China right now, I don't know if you're aware of it, is that there's 15 million people that have just disappeared. So the argument is one of three possibilities that one, a lot more people died during the events of 2019 to 2023 than they purported.
Yeah,
Two, they grossly overestimated their population. Or three, that because of the one child policy, they're experiencing all of a sudden population collapse all at once. 15 million people is a lot of people to be unaccounted for. So that
yeah,
it makes me think it's the two latter in that option because the first one was this grand psyop, in my belief.
right.
So it leads me to the two, and the third one could be very viable as well if that certain nation state does have 15 people that are unaccounted for, and that becomes proven in the next month or so. That makes China look very weak on the world stage and an easy target for military operations because
Yeah,
China's strength has always been based on its sheer numbers. And if they're 15 million people short, that's their economy that's going to suffer. That's their population and culture that will suffer. That's their military that suffers. That's the manufacturing system that's going to suffer because they can't get any workers. And
right.
China's typically not the nation that opens up its borders to foreign workers to come in. So how are they going to boost their population and their people? They have to expand their borders and absorb other nation states. And within the last week or
Mm,
so, it's a lot of fear mongering in my belief, but in the last week or so, the biggest trending topic on Chinese social media was that Australia belongs to the Chinese, that ancient Chinese mariners made their way to Australia, so they technically own it. So they're already pushing in this discussion point that Australia is going to be drawn into a conflict with China. And we saw that out of press leaks from the previous Biden administration that the goal for the American military industrial complex and intelligence apparatus was to engage Australia with China in a hot war similar to the Ukraine and Russia, where America would keep funding us with weapons and we'd be at a stalemate with China in the South China Sea. So we've got this timeline coming around where we see war and nuclear symbols and global disasters on this world ahead of 2025. And these little
yeah.
things keep popping up in the news that's a little too coincidental for it to not to relate to some of these images.
I already saw, I think it was last year. You guys are having problems with subs, right? They're not going to have something equipable until 28 or 29 from what I was reading in the
2040.
article.
We won't be getting these subs until 2040. It's like we're buying state of the art fighter jets, state of the art, which is like two generations behind what Americans and everyone else have got. Submarine deals with the United Kingdom and America that we won't get until 2040. Like, and subs could be obsolete by then. Like the technology
Yeah,
advances so quickly, we're spending all this money on war posturing against a nation that outnumbers us hugely to the point where it wouldn't even be a fight without American backing, which scares
that's
me if the plan is to get us bogged down in a hot war in which we're just lobbing missiles at each other and dying on front lines.
which with the Olympics they had that figure of the painting of the knight slaying the dragon,
Mm-hmm.
and the point of the spear was right at Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck, mate. Dang. But dude,
And
I don't
it
know
could
if
be
we would
taken
get
as
off
two
of it.
ways. The dragon could be China, the sleeping dragon, or the dragon could be the rainbow serpent of Australian mythology, arguably a
Mm,
flying dragon of creation.
a dragon is a dragon is a dragon.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they we might not get off with that right away though, because then they do show America and South America over here
All
with
over
the
there.
nuclear eyeball.
Mm.
Is this the lady of the EU,
Yeah, who just said that the
the
European culture
Kabbalah,
is based on the
Talmud?
on
Yes, I saw that.
Talmud.
I was like, what the frick? You're not even hiding it at this point, dude. And I was at a game night, and the guy's now he doesn't want me to come over anymore unless if I can keep talking spiritually. He said, I don't talk about it unless I'm asked. Shut up unless asked about it, right? And now he's saying don't come over. And I was playing the clip that of verses that Charlie was endorsing about the Talmud about with Christ. And when I asked him, I said, "So are you supporting?" He says, "No." I said, "Okay, so are you therefore if you're not supporting it?" I said, "Why would you be telling me to not play it anymore?" And he goes, "Because it's not true." Have you looked into it? And I'm over here going, dude, we're this close to Noahide laws being implemented, and you're telling me something like this is not true. You're a cinch to getting lied to with whatever's coming down the line because you have no idea about what's brewing.
That was a
And I'm
great way to
thinking,
obfuscate that conversation that he did with the young guy that asked the question because he essentially put it as the Talmud is a group of discussions about rabbinical law about arguing what is true within their own theology. And some of them
right.
believe in it and some of them don't. It still doesn't take away the fact that some of them do believe in that.
Yeah.
So
Again,
it
it's just like with radical
completely misses
Islam.
that.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. It's just like with certain secular sects within Islam, there is a radical extreme. I said the Talmud's like the Sharia law on freaking steroids, except they hate Christ very badly. And I'm like, this should be something we're concerned about. And they're just like, nah, it doesn't mean anything or it's not true. Okay, don't blame me when Noahide laws comes around because you're gonna get what you're gonna deserve. And that's sadly what they want. But we already know the new age is satanic, but the serpent of light, right? Notice I find your inner light. And I'm chuckling because I'm seeing all this, the third eye thing, right? And they're over saying the third eye is like, oh, the bad guys, the all-seeing eye thing. You're like, right. So we're saying on one hand, that all-seeing eye thing on top of the pyramid, that's bad. We know it's bad. We know it connects with Satan. But then this is what you emphasize for your show, or you put up in your freaking bios as something you emphasize. Like, are you against the occult? right? Or you don't like Christ, but
Mm.
you're pro the symbols of the bad guy team.
Oh, sorry
This
there,
is something,
Brandon. We lost you just as you started to talk about
of
the
course.
as you started to speak about the serpent of light. Can you just back up and go back over what you'd
Sure.
mentioned?
So yes, a serpent of light, and I was saying is that a lot of people, like we were saying before, with the truther community, they're saying that they don't like Christ, but we know for a fact this all-seeing eye thing is occultic. For Christians, we know it connects with Satan, right? If you're not very adept of what it all means, blah blah blah, you at least know, okay, it's Satan ideologies, right? Okay, but why is this the symbol you go for? Because I'm seeing a lot especially in the West, it's a projection culture. Is they're more evil than me? I'm not that morally depraved. I like pointing my finger at that one as the problem. I don't take any responsibility for what I do. I'm going to keep doing my pagan practices because, get back to my roots before the use, get rid of it all. That's that's literally verbatim what I was hearing when they were talking about me on a show that I was mentioning earlier. I was like, I'm hello. I can hear you. I know you guys don't know I'm in the chat right now, but I'm chuckling to myself. I said, it's not me. I'm telling you biblically what was grieving God's heart by unraveling and unpacking symbolism wise what was more than just Baal worship of sacrificing kids. What were other elements there that the prophets were constantly condemning and the people weren't implementing, right? That's the thing is I'm not speaking on behalf of me. I'm telling you anthropology wise with symbolism, this is what they still believe today. And we still have the Adamic excuse back to the Garden of Eden of saying it was her, it was the serpent. Guys, just be frank with me. Did you do it? Take accountability. We don't have that anymore.
So I'm not going to be angry with you. I'm just going to be disappointed. But please just tell me that you made the wrong choice. It's like how you deal with kids. The kid that's got chocolate all over their
Yes.
face. Did you eat the chocolate? No. It's okay if you did. We all make mistakes. You just need to tell me the truth. No, I didn't. Ah, now there's the consequence because you chose to lie.
Right. There's chocolate all over
All
your
over the
freaking
mouth.
lips. Yeah. So the interesting thing that I find, Siri, which we just had this thing with Amazon. I'm not sure if you guys had that, probably with your communist Australia. They just passed a thing here in America where now basically, uh, what is it, Alexa, that she can now record everything going on in the household, and there's nothing you can do to opt out of that. I said, very odd timing, very technocratic in nature. Why would you want to be starting to record what goes on in people's homes? And again, it's like we let you know, but people are not going to get rid of their Alexa because we've been programmed. It's a convenience. So why would I get rid of said convenience, right? But Siri, spelled backwards, is iris, which means eye. All seeing eye, right? They want to know everything that's going on. Very Orwellian, is it not? So when you were talking about the pyramids, and I said maybe that's Elon, maybe it's Kushner. All I know is that he has said something before, and it was published in the Jerusalem Post, that Elon Musk sparks controversy with latest tweet on pyramids and aliens. Now I took that with a little bit of a okay, whatever, Elon. I don't really like you anyway, but that's what you're thinking. And then he retracts his statement and he says, okay, somebody posted something from their BBC thing, and I respect that article, whatever. But he threw it out there, right? And he's got a huge following. So it's again implanted in pop culture. Then I took a screenshot from Elon Musk's Dark MAGA Assemble video, and in the upper right hand corner, as we're watching it, I said, wait, whoa, 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 whoa. This is going really fast. It's like the whole much symbolism within 2 minutes and like 30 seconds of a video. And I said, what's this? In the upper right,
That would
that's
look like it's supposed to be the Christ.
a Christ figure with a halo next to an all seeing eye with a portal opening up. And I'm thinking to myself, Elon, and then what we just had with the pyramid, and we're seeing a portal opening up, and we're seeing a Christ figure. It really makes you start scratching your head. Have you seen this video?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, it's worth the peruse, dude. I think another guy did it for a shorter version if you're looking for like 30 minutes. Uh, herding humanity, herding as in herding cattle or whatever, on YouTube, and he is breaking it down, and it's a very authoritarian, and they're going like medieval authoritarian, like we said before with medieval Death Volt and stuff like that. And a lot of it is zombies. They had the Attack of Titan going on in there. They're kicking down doors. I was like, this is already going on with ICE, and we know this is only a matter of degree. I just read something today. Christy Noem says they're now going to be moderating immigrants' phones for anti-Semitism. So if they're doing that with immigrants, who's
And
to say
you can
6 to 8 months down the line you're not going to do it on our citizens?
And you combine that with the likes of Alexa or Home Google or all these little devices for convenience in your house that are now recording, and there's things in place in which we see fascistic types of undertones where private corporations and government are working in unity to push out their platform and their reasons. If it's an attack on anti-Semitism or reducing anti-Semitism, well, all they have to do is go, all right, Google, Amazon, we want all your recordings of every time someone says these key phrases.
Right.
They
Yes.
go
Yep.
through. Then you get a knock on the door. You were talking anti-Semitically, and your Alexa recorded you, and now you're in big trouble. Ironically, this is pretty much the plot to the Tom Hanks film called The Circle, in which he has his circle like device in people's houses, and he
Mhm.
records everything they're saying and uses it to get people arrested and goes after them for his own corporation and their needs and wants. Like this was made back in 2017, and now it's essentially happening and being put out by the government that yeah, this is going to happen now.
Dude, it's not a coincidence. I'm telling you, it's so easy to see as a Christian. And then, like, again, Tesla, all set when you say it backwards. Like, who's to know? Alexa, if you say it backwards, is it Ax Ellie or Ax Ella? I don't know. Maybe there's something there. Ax L, it means Lord, and with an E at the end. I don't know. Sure, if we break it down, we're gonna find something. I was breaking down. Saw a guy Clay Lee on Facebook. He was breaking down Constitution, basically saying you consented to this. Is basically in rough Latin what it translates to. You chose this. No, I didn't. I wasn't behind the closed doors with the founding fathers who stayed up several late nights to to orchestrate whatever's on that freaking piece of paper. I wasn't there, but you consented to it because you keep voting for it. Now hold on just a minute. I'm voting for the lesser of two. Right? You start arguing about it, but it's like you are putting your energy into man, right, to find the solution. Where a man of
Huh.
God is supposed to be under the headship of God. Oh, what did you find?
Alexa backwards, Alexei, or whatever the pronunciation for that would be, it means small oak tree and source of life,
No.
which is a variant of the Hebrew name Absalom, which means my father is peace. And who's the peace bringer at the moment? Donald J. Trump.
Dude, I'm telling you, it's dang. I had a hunch and that just confirmed it. I think Elon has some kind of name etymology to tree too, like a strong oak or wherever. And I'm again, when I hear mindset, I think again, mind comes from thoth, where we get thought, right? Ment, mind, men, whatever, government. Mind's eye. There was a preacher at my old college and he'd say that phrase often. He says, "Sometimes in my mind's eye," and I made a meme saying he's Illuminati confirmed for such and so, and kind of went viral for a little bit. But I was chuckling because it's a phrase that we often hear. But it wields dominion over the physical avatar, which is a big thing these days, right? Create your own little avatar, channeling its desires into the fabric of the simulation, which is a big word of matrix simulation. These are terms in the Kabbalah that we hear a lot of truthers talking about. It's like you're talking about something you don't know. Be very careful. You mustn't read from the book as we get from the mummy, right? Unless you know what you're going to be resurrecting with your words. The head symbolizing heaven serves as the throne for consciousness, as it houses the seat of perception, the eye. Our consciousness transcends the confines of the 3D matrix, existing in a realm of true reality beyond the material plane. Now, as you are seeing here on the screen, the Star of Remphan and or Star of David, this is basically saying this is how we achieve divine man. We converge all the elements together and we will become our own gods. What did the serpent say in the Garden of Eden? You shall be like gods. What is this? What are they pitching these days? I'm a star seed. Star seed. Okay. It's the same lie. It's just modified, adapted. And what are they trying to do? They're trying to bring it about to bring back to Babel 2.0 to go back to war against God. But what do they have to culturally get us back into? This is normal. This is how our ancestors did it. Yeah. And that's how the flood came around.
Well, on top of that, like we've got the use of AI today and like chat GPT and open source AI,
Mm,
when you overlap that symbol on top of itself, the center of it is the Star of Remfam, or as people would know it as the Star of David. It's literally there. And what does
yeah.
AI give us the potential to do today? It gives us the potential to speak with anyone of any tongue on the planet. It
Hmm.
brings us back to a pre-Babel language, right? We can all speak in the same language because we've got this
Devices.
artificial intermediary, which is kind of circumventing the idea that our languages and our tongues were scattered so we couldn't communicate with each other. Well, now we've got a device that does that for us. It's an
Mm.
intelligence that isn't made of God, it's made of man, and its symbol's literally the Star of Remphan.
I have never used it. That's why I don't know. But yeah, it does not surprise me at all. Pineal gland. There's something I found interesting. The word aeon, and I was combining this with Zayon, Zayan. Maybe that's the root word for Zion, Zionism, Zion. And I'm connecting it with the mark of Cain. Maybe that's the lightning bolt, quote unquote, that he got on his head. That was the mark, hence Harry Potter, right? And the lightning bolt was so popular in the occult, hence Zeus throwing his lightning bolt. Maybe there's something there. But aeon in and of itself means the eye or the organ of sight. It reverberates typically to the pair of spherical bodies. Article of talk means nothingness in Hebrew. That's another word for eye. I was chuckling. I was going, so in a sense, in Hebrew, God's kind of saying, even if you think what you see, you don't really understand what it is you see. Because even the angels, so imagine you're sitting up there and you're seeing God creating everything, poof, poof, poof. And they're still over here going, how did he do that? I don't know. You want to go down there and try to explain it to them? Sure. But we don't even know. But they create all these signs and symbols and they're telling us, yeah, we know how it's done. No, you don't. You only got a glance at the blueprints in the mind of God, right? Mind of God. And that's what you want to replicate. You can mimic, but you can't create. That's what the occult is trying to do is create God in our own image or take his word, right? That's why you're trying. If I kill Christ, I kill a part of God because that's the word of God, as we get in John 1:14. So if I kill God's son, the word of God made flesh, I win. He comes back as the way, the truth, and the life. He's resurrected. My heaven and earth will pass away. My word will never pass away. So I can't even kill God's word. Right. And this is how everybody's going to be saved because they follow God's word. Dang it. But it's so simple, dude. But people are overcomplicating it because you're trying to put your own perception, your sight, onto something else that is not what God had intended. Just follow my standards. And we trying to overcomplicate it because you want to get backstage? You want to know what it's like to be like the mind of God, be like the gods? Yeah. No, we don't need to know that. We have our own realm, and I love that's what you have a very healthy skepticism, but we have a certain district. It's interesting to entertain cryptids. It's interesting to entertain the UFO talk. At the end of the day, is anything that you're listening to or watching and stuff like is that going to be beneficial when you're witnessing to somebody? Now, if you're healthy enough and you're experienced enough in the faith, yes, you can entertain that stuff because you actually know where it's all coming from and you don't need to get all freaked out. But some people they make that their life. That's all you know.
Yeah.
And
They're
when
the
real
Bigfoot guy or they're the alien guy, and that's the only
right,
realm they look at.
right, and then it's scary because then you've consolidated your potential only into this particular field. So when the great deception is happening, you have no idea because you only have 1/10 of the puzzle. It's scary, but you should expand upon that as a Christian, right? Because you want to grow in your faith. You don't want to be an adolescent all the time.
Until I see Bigfoot walking out of the woods wearing a Mason apron and a Frisian hat, holding hands with a grey alien throwing up some 666s, I don't think it's terribly important. Interesting, yes, you can connect some dots with other things, but I don't think it should form the breadth and body of someone's entire work.
Right. Right. It's like I think this could be that, but again, if it was important for us, we would be in contact with it on a frequent basis. Obviously, it's not at this time. It's going to be, but I don't think we have to over worry about it. Um, except for the people that are going to be down here. You should have tried to find out where they came from first before to try to figure out what are they. Um, Star of Remphan, we see it in all these cultures across the world. It's not, again, so we're talking about a new world religion. These are elements that have already been implemented into Ethiopia, Armenia, Hindu, Egypt, Church of Satan, Islam. It's all over. And that's just something we have to be wary about. When I mentioned that Hermetic Kabbalah tree of life, fire equals the regular pyramid, right?
Hmm.
Water going downward with the triangle. You have upward with a little bit of a slash through it. So air, which is immediately what I was thinking when I saw this. The all-seeing eye, it's separate from the pyramid, and Satan is known as the prince of the air waves. 5G airwaves, okay. And then earth downward with a slash through it, maybe representing Sheol, right? If you love the things of this earth, you're going to be thrown down there with the rest of them because that's what you desire, right? You've made that your point.
And think
And
about the symbol of air there, where it's very reminiscent of the all-seeing eye and the pyramid of the US dollar. That
mhm,
idea of the eye symbolism being connected to air. Well, what are we seeing the modern marvels of the world depicted in? The air and the skies. We're seeing Skylink. We're seeing the idea of projected images in the sky. We're seeing drones. We're seeing these holographics that are air-based marvels. That if
mhm,
you're someone of the past and you're having prophetic visions of the future, you would assume that they are marvels of magic or mysticism that are being used, not brick and mortar technology that's been reverse engineered to emulate something from the past.
right, right, absolutely. And this is this is my biggest thing, Drew. I'm seeing these people, they're good intentions, they're sharing truth, but it's so much from the hip that it scares me because then I see the grifters come along and somebody who thinks they know because they saw one truth or page share, oh look, creepy 66, here's a number. But then I've seen somebody saying pray for Israel while they put a Star Wars fan up. And I'm like, you so you're condemning this as above, so below thing with the bafflement, right? Because oh, that's Satan, but you're practicing it. Because what is that doing? God's word, we bring it down to our level and we create it. As within, so without, as the universe, so the soul. Soul Invictus. And this is from Hermes Trismegistus. This is Nimrod's son. Conjoined as above, so below is what all these points of the stars coming together mean. So in one part, you're condemning the occult, right? But then you're doing this with either your Christmas tree, that's what the grows unto Ashtaroth and Baal. This is what it symbolized. You put a star and or an angel at the top. We shall become like gods. Jeremiah 5, 1 through 10, 1 through 5, verse 2. Don't be like the pagans who look to the stars and in awe and wonder of them. Well, I don't do it for those reasons. God knows the intentions of my heart. Intentions of your heart. Here we go again.
Or you get the throwaway argument. Christianity just adopted it and made it their own, so it's no longer
Right.
pagan. We've made it better than what it was. Well,
We Christianized it. It's like how Catholic of you.
yeah.
Dude. It's literally what the Romans used to do. Um, Especially after when they were going against Carthage, they took on the gods of the Carthage culture if they won the war, and that is exactly what they did. This is how Cybele ended up transferring into Rome. So people, it's kind of like if you're appropriating the gods of another culture, or this halo thing comes from Horus in Egypt, and you're now bringing that in to represent the Son of God, you're putting your own definition on things. The cross. Christ conquers that symbol. That's not a symbol of Christianity. That's a symbol of the occult. You fold it up, it's a Kaaba cube. It represents the same thing as this. And it has all the star signs all over it. In Gnosticism, when you look it up. And then there's like, it's not what it means to me. So pick up your cross. What is that representing? If the cross represents things of this earth and God's word conquered the things of this world, and we're supposed to be transformed by the renewing of our mind and not conform to things of this world, we have a conformist culture because we're making allowances and exceptions for things of this world by integrating them into our daily life because we Christianized it. No, just because you put Christian in front of something does not make it better.
It
Our
essentially,
God,
like the symbolism that surrounds Christ carrying the cross on his back is almost like a mockery that they were trying to putting him in the position that Prometheus was. In Greek
yes.
mythology, Prometheus, the Titan who gifted mankind with knowledge of fire,
Mhm.
was punished with having his liver eaten all the time. But then we see the Titans that were forced to carry the earth on their back. And if the cross is meant to represent the the physical body of Christ on earth, he's carrying the earth on his back. It's so symbolic of all these
Correct.
symbols.
You see it. It has all these levels, and it's not a coincidence. There was a bronze snake put on the staff, because that represents Hermes Caduceus' staff in the wilderness. You want to go back to the snake ideologies of Egypt? Well, then so be it. But you have to look to a man of God's creation of a serpent staff, right? And then what does it get right before John 3:16? I think it's in 3:14. Just as Moses lifted up a snake in the wilderness, so shall the Son of Man be lifted up. You see the symmetry here, folks. He's like, I understand the symbolism, I understand the mockery, but you're going to be looking to me for your real salvation in life and body, right? Because they have a body temple. The occult believes in a body temple. Christ says in 3 days, I will, this temple will be destroyed. He's saying the same thing. But what New Ageism does is saying, oh, no, 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 no. Forget about your citizenship up there because you're down here, right? And this is your season. This is where you find God. You have to find him within. And it's all about submitting to him. That's what picking up your cross is all about. That's why symbolism is so important.
And this new age symbolism isn't new age by any means. Look at the
Right.
Kundalini colors or the Kabbalah colors that you see in the sequence. Clearly,
Yes.
people associate that with the spinal column, the central nervous system, the root chakra and all that jazz that they talk about. But I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
looking at this now. Arguably, the oldest living culture in the world is Aboriginal Australian culture, and their
Mhm.
creator deity for many mobs and different groups is the rainbow serpent. Well, what is a rainbow
Yes.
serpent reminiscent of? The spinal column and the colors that are associated down that line. It's literally color for color what that deity is depicted as. And that was a dragon is a dragon, right?
Right. Right.
It's the same symbols being retold again and again.
Well, again, they allege that around the throne of God, or what I don't, I'm not sure what we call it, space terms. You might know a little bit more because you were big into the UFO, but the rainbow color in space, they allege that that is actually the colors around the throne of God. So as the devil, pride flag, Satan's known as the father of the children of pride, Pride Month, you invert that, right? And you want to sit on the throne of God. What does Baphomet do? He sits on a dome. Whether or not that's true, I'm just saying this is what the occult believes. So maybe there's something there. Maybe there's something there. And you want to take over the throne of God, right? Maybe there's something there. But and again, Hermes, Hermetic alchemical traditions, red and black are often used to represent the principles of soul, right? That's fire, sun, and terra, earth, respectively. Red symbolizes the fiery, solar, and masculine principles, while the black represents the dark, terrestrial, and feminine principles. This is, as above, so below. You just said the Fraserian caps. This is what it's representing, the complexities of the human experience, the balance of opposing forces, quote unquote, and the pursuit of spiritual growth and transcendence. Sounds very new agey to me, and they're the ones wearing these things, not me. I'm just saying, again, we can wear I'm wearing flannel. It doesn't mean I'm supporting whatever these colors mean, but it's impressive. Like, you have to understand, for them, when they're putting something on screen, when they're putting something on stage, and you're there taking it all in through your eyes, like somebody got really upset with me when he's like, I was there at the Butler shooting. It was definitely real. Somebody died. I know you don't like Trump, but it was. I'm like, it's symbolism. You keep seeing the world through a secular interpretation. I'm seeing it with a biblical lens of, I think we're really close because symbolism wise of the occult, this is what I'm seeing, right? I don't see what you see. Revelation means the lifting of the veil. I see symbols. You see sentiments, right?
What I
So,
tend to see in the MAGA and dark MAGA hat symbolism myself is that Trump was wearing this red hat the entire time of his campaign up until he got appointed to president. What do we see in the
yeah,
Catholic Church? Cardinals are adorned in red. Before they're appointed to the role of Pope or role of president, becoming the white Pope, they wear red. Well, he's no
yes,
longer wearing his red cap anymore because he's president, right? He's at this position where he's essentially the white Pope. But we do see Elon continue to wear the black hat, the black Pope. And who arguably runs the Catholic Church? The black Pope. Who is really running America? I can't be certain on this, but Elon certainly has had a lot of sway on American geopolitics.
yeah. And Doge means leader. I don't know, but and Trump's actually been wearing a white cap lately.
Ah, well, there you go. And what did we have? We had Elon's son literally in the White House going, "Shut up! You're not the real president. You be quiet."
Right. You're just a mouthpiece. Pull out Netanyahu's chair again. Dude, it's like, and this is me. I'm like, I'm not left, I'm not right. I'm just chuckling, going, guys, do you see how silly it looks? It looks so silly. Freemasons be like, we don't worship Lucifer. I'm not going to read all of that. Just the last line I found very interesting, because it says a southern jurisdiction in Charleston, South Carolina, upper center is representative of the symbol of Satanist of the 33rd degree, Freemason Aleister Crowley, when he signed his name Baphomet X. Now, well, who names everything X? And who was wearing a suit nicknamed the Devil's Champion leather armor? Now, it doesn't say Satan himself. It says champion, the Devil's Champion. 2027, he wants to have an army of robots going on, and that's the year of the goat. All I'm saying is years ahead in Google, whether or not true, it says Armageddon is supposed to be in 2027, and there's supposed to be a special announcement in regards to Trump on October 2nd. After his ear clip, there's a rabbi that said that. So whether or not that's all true, I was just going, very interesting, because in the year following that, you have the devil and Christ doing an arm wrestling match over the world. Is that supposed to be foreshadowing? I don't know. But what I'm chuckling over here in the States, they're over here saying we don't want commies. And yet, Elon himself has stated that AI will bring universal income for all. A equals 1, I equals 9, AI equals X. So, and he wears this at the fight shortly after the inauguration. They went to a fight, and he was wearing the symbol, the Omega, Alpha and Omega, symbol of the 24th and final letter of the Greek alphabet, and in it was written the upper symbol for the lowercase.
The end.
Right, and that
And
symbol
Omega.
upside down is an inverted McDonald's M sign. I, which is supposed to be a sign of Baal, and in the dark magic book of the occult, it's supposed to, yeah, they're just, again, not me, this is them.
The apostolic.
I'm just saying, I could be wrong, but if the false prophet thing is true, this is what literal evangelicals are saying right now about Trump and Elon. It's only like a 20-second clip.
Clarity that's coming right now is coming from King Donald Trump, but it extends even over the church because he is a fellow believer, and he's every single one of his values that he lays out there are biblical values. Apostle Trump.
Yeah.
Let's go with Prophet Elon. There are some things the Lord showed me. Archangel Michael is working very closely with Trump. Archangel Gabriel working very closely with Elon.
So if Elon is communicating with anything to develop his technology and push his, his platform and his company, I dare say he's not communicating with Gabriel or any of the archangels. I think he's communicating with something a little bit more spicy.
A little bit more nefarious, especially said AI will be our god and it'll come from Memphis. Hence, again, going back to the pyramid, going, are you talking about Memphis, Tennessee? Or are you talking about Memphis, Egypt? And it's not funny, but why are you laughing about this? And then the Oracle guy, Larry Ellison, who's in charge of the Project Stargate, he was talking about, he says, we're going to have monitoring with drones and they're going to be over in every city. So let's say like in the city of Memphis. Why out of all the cities in all the world, that's the exact one that you used when you're referring to Oracle, right? What I'm finding interesting is the Israeli Supreme Court has this turquoise all-seeing eye atop of it. It was built by a Rothschild. But then I find this Ark of the Covenant replica at Mar-a-Lago. Again, this is for visual. I know you already know about this. And you have this, what is it, this O'Keefe guy standing next to it. And then it gets shipped to Israel, allegedly. Is this going to be a replica that they use? Because we already, again, in stateside, we already had a thing where Mr. Biden was getting his special elixir for his arm, and they were showing. Somebody took a side shot, and you see the studio of where they were taking this. They made it look like it was in the Oval Office. So I'm just saying, who's to say they did not construct this, and they're going to put up this huge theater event for our entertainment, make us think it's the real thing when they're unveiling it. And obviously, if they're opening it with drones, it has to be the real thing, right? Because this is how cool we are, dude.
Odd choice of architecture for the Supreme Court in Israel to have a pyramid in it, right? That's like being the victim of something, then continuing to traumatize yourself with imagery of it.
Right. It's like,
Like
don't
this,
tell
this
me
is the
it
guy that
doesn't.
assaulted me down the street. I'm gonna have a photo of him up in my house all the time. Bit
Right.
strange.
In 1832, they bought the Vatican Bank, and there was some guy that was somewhere in Europe, and he was writing a retraction. He says a Jew now controls the throne of God or wherever on earth, and everything like that. But I was over here going, so if he has connections with money, and we know that it connects to the 14-something royal secret society families with every single thing on the dollar bill, whatever, yada yada yada. Why is that the symbol of a court? A court. Does that have anything to do with Noahide laws? The high Sanhedrin court and the champion of Noahide laws going to a Sanhedrin thing to implement these things internationally, and a Chat GPT answering a guy when he's talking about it on the phone, saying, "Yeah, that's where he went. He did do that." Right after he gets elected into office. Now I know you already shared this with the Economist, and they're doing a compare contrast of 1988's the Phoenix sitting over a wad of cash as the money is burning, right? Then they have Trump burning the money in 2025 with gasoline. It's like, yeah, well, is that supposed to be symbolizing, burning the economy of the gas industry? Or is he talking about literally burning the economy? Who's to say? But this is the symbol I found on here from another
Ah,
page with Grok. Which is a big thing with Elon right now.
and Stellar, which is
Uh-huh.
crypto.
So I'm beginning to suspect more and more, again, crypto. I highly suspect it's crypt for Osiris, right? Cryptosiris. And as we said before, a reference to Bitcoin is what this is supposed to represent. The Phoenix, you mentioned the Phoenix coin, right? Coming back from the brink. I could easily see this because bunch of imagery with Trump and phoenixes are all over the place. America's known as the land of the feathered serpent and or Tortoise Island. Tortoise is affiliated with Hermes. Trump has name etymology to Hermes. So I'm thinking to myself, he's not that far-fetched. When we saw this thing over in Italy, the all-seeing eye in the parade of the god, and I kid you not, this is the name of this animatronic thing, the God Emperor Trump.
Which,
And
if you're not a big nerd like me, you wouldn't know that this is based off the Emperor of Mankind from Warhammer 40,000, in which
yeah,
a super powered being conquered Earth, conquered humanity, went out into the stars to subjugate and wipe out all alien races. Very Catholic kind of approach to things. He ends up semi-dying because he got into a fight with a demon, and he sits on a golden throne in which he daily absorbs the souls of psychic people to stay alive in this kind of zombie state for all of time. So even the basis of that is completely,
you watch Dark Mecha Assemble, that's not just creepy because it shows a lot of zombie-like figures.
yeah.
And it showed, did you watch Berserk with Guts?
Yes.
They had the clip scene with Griff. I mean, this was the only good part, I think, in the third film. After that, they kind of went all downhill. My 2 cents. They showed the scene where Griff was walking over the corpses as he's walking to the castle to obtain his throne, right? And I was saying, why out of all the imagery in that entire movie, that's the scene you're showing me, and you're showing me all these Attack on Titan, all these zombie-like walking creatures. And again, add to that Twitter birds around the hilt. Is that supposed to guard his reputation? Is that talking about censorship with the communist hammer and sickle, universal income for all? The
And the
breastplate
phoenix
with a
head on the
phoenix on
crest.
it?
Yeah.
And then there's an all-seeing eye on the freaking sword. This is not me, folks, but for me, it's like, I could be wrong, but as we've been breaking this down, symbolism-wise, this is kind of freaking me out. Now you just filled in a lot of blanks with that. It's like, guys, hello? They're comparing him to this individual. And what do they say? They want to use humans by 2030 as human antennas? That kind of sounds like harvesting psychic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then Bitcoin, when you look at the bottom right, it's got 666 on it. Someone's like, no, it means 999. Well,
Also,
want to that,
looking at that Bitcoin, clearly it's meant to imply it's digital currency and it's got the circuitry boards that are on it. You compare the circuitry boards of most processors on computers, televisions, any kind of electronic today, it looks eerily similar to the Seals of Solomon,
yes,
which are used to
and
bind demons to their will.
twin
And,
pillars of Boaz and Yakin for the temple, and or a scroll. 33 with the B here. It's just something to be okay. Maybe it's nothing, but I don't believe it. Again, where the White House is at the very tip, it's an all-seeing eye. If you're going northwise, it has a pentagram over it, and the tip of it, of the Baphomet head, would be pointing right at the White House. Trump's former name used to be Drump, which means little horn, or horn player, drum player.
Is that centralized location on that pyramid? Is that the Washington Monument in the center there?
I think so.
Which
would not surprise me at all because, yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. And I think where the Washington Monument is, when you zero in on it, it has a Ouroboros, and the Washington Monument is in this very center of that Circle 8. And then Trump Tower, between Carnegie Hall, Rockefeller, Trump Tower is at the very tip of that. Sure, overthinking it, but it's also the address of 666. Sure, overthinking it. I get it. Okay. But, the Eye of Ra, Ray, it holds the secret to enlightenment. Now, when you take Vance and Trump's name, trance, but, TVRAUN, you put their names side by side, it's like, and you go all the way down. Pulmonary embolism is for another one of them. I was like, when Trump did his Republican convention at the very in 24, he had Novus Ordo Seclorum, and every person who was speaking was in the eye region of the all-seeing eye. Again, and he does this hand pyramid thing all the time, going downward, water, the feminine sign. When he was going into the military, right? Or just enough to go to the school, but not enough to actually get deployed. He was at the tip of standing in the line.
And that navy suit seems to have a very purple hue to it. And we know that purple is a symbolism of royalty.
Yes. Again, Solomon's temple. Some say Sol, Soul, Mon, the mind, temple of the mind. That's them, not me. Sol equals sun, moon, monolith, moon, months. This is what they think. And then again, when you go on this thing, when you do the key of Solomon on the back of our dollar, you get all the letters and it misspells out Mason. Whether or not it's true, but they also said the key of the Great Pyramid is missing. It is believed to represent the missing phallus of Osiris. It is the key. So what you just said with the Washington Monument, Nimrod got his cut off, allegedly by, again, one says Seth, the other says it's Shem, but Seth didn't live past the flood, so I think there might have been maybe either replica of an incident of saying, I remember this from the story of the Lord when we were on the ark, or he's over here going, Shem. Nimrod, you little dummy, says you're defying God. I'm going to go cut off your phallus if you think you're so great, whatever. And then his son, Tammuz, allegedly, he went to go avenge his dad. He killed Shem by cutting off his thing, but Shem, in retaliation, he got him in the eyeball. And that's part of where the mythos of the all-seeing eye came from. Again, I'm just piecing together what I've heard from lore and what could possibly make sense. It doesn't mean it's true at all. I'm just saying something went down with his family.
That pyramid prior to it, where it had the key floating above the tip of the pyramid that was gone, meant to be the tip cut off, right? Most pyramids around the world have flat base tops. They're ziggurats or they're step pyramids. Only really Egypt and Ethiopia have those pointed tops. But then again, those pointed tops used to be solid gold. And this is a hypothesis and something that's, kind of been floated around through science fiction, is that golden tip was supposed to represent the gods or the power landing on top of the pyramid. And what have we had pumped into us through science fiction, kind of paving the way for the future through soft disclosure? The pyramids are landing bases for alien spaceships, Stargate SG-1, all these shows.
Yeah.
And what do we see? This all-seeing eye floating above the ziggurat pyramid. And when they're starting to bring in these aspects of structures underneath the pyramids that were built by unknown people, must have been aliens because humans can't do it. They're really starting to lay it on thick now with where I think they're trying to lead us to.
Yes, 1,000%, dude. 1,000%. And again, that's what my pet goat. They're showing an alien ship flying over the top and going through the base. It's like, yeah, I don't know, guys. But something I found interesting, and I stumbled on this just randomly, but I was looking at the chakras as you were just talking about. The crown chakra was Jupiter, the eye chakra, Saturn, but at the base, the root chakra was Mars. And ironically enough, when you're doing the hand sign for the Kundalini of the Om, that equals 666. And I was chuckling because when you look at the Hermetic Kabbalah tree of life, you could put this right on top of it. Kether equals corona. That's the Hebrew word. The crown, the golden crown of Babylon age. Do we want to go back in the time, right? And X, Malkuth, equals 10. That is the base of the empire of iron and clay, where God comes as, the rock, meteorite, possibly, whatever, and crushes the empire of iron and clay. This is what I'm seeing when I'm thinking of 2020 going, guys, we're there. This is the occult. This 666 Mars. We're gonna put our flag on Mars. God's saying, this ain't gonna happen. The 10 toes, Empire of the 10 clay toes. There's a reason why I picked that, because I was like, this is it.
They're even trying to set up through like the crown chakras and the planets aligning. They're trying to link that back to like Greco-Roman culture of Jupiter being the king of the Titans, then Saturn taking over and ruling. It's essentially just the tale of God versus Satan. And they've just put Satan as the good guy in all these stories.
Correct. It's always inverted. Always inverted. But when you learn how to read it, again, I've done stuff before. I think 9/11 was Coronation Day. Part of the reason was I see symbols like this. That gives me a little confirmation with Osiris or Baphomet laying between three pillars, right? And then I see this one of duality of the magic of perception and power, right? And a lot of times when you see imagery of Trump, they always line him up with the Statue of Liberty, who's affiliated with Libertas and the red Fraserian caps. And she is often depicted standing between the two pillars. This guys, right? And they're showing the fire going at the very top of the pyramid. Truth. What did he create? Truth Social. What did Christ say? I am the way, the truth, and the life. They chose the insurrectionists Barabbas over choosing Christ. They chose Trump over.
How many coincidences does there have to be until it's kind of a proven fact at this point?
Thank you. And that's what I'm saying is, Drew, I don't know the answers, but I keep going. Then there's this, then there's this, and there's also this. And I am going in your, again, the people who listen to me, I am listening to your New Ageism. I'm listening to your Hindu, your Kundalini. I'm now quoting Anton LaVey. He approves of your thing. Oh, no, well, you don't like the occult. Hey, come back here. Come back here. You're now telling me it's not true, but I'm reading your sources, and I'm now going compare and contrast with the Bible, condemning what these people support, right? The coincidences are explaining themselves, whereas the other people are saying, trust me, bro. Why do I trust you? You don't base what you've looked at through a biblical lens, which as a Christian we're supposed to do, right?
And if you've got the toddler with chocolate on their mouths, chocolate on their fingers, a wrapper in their bedroom, their breath smells like chocolate, and the chocolate's missing, one would surmise that maybe the toddler had ate the chocolate.
Yes.
Like, how many times are we going to let these things stack up before we start talking about it in a realistic way instead of just throwing it out there? This could be the potential. Like, that's a good place to be in, to say that this is, a lot of these things are adding up to this and this could be it. But people aren't even willing to accept that just because of the personality that these things are lining up around, and this person in particular.
And I'm just saying, be wary, because a lot of these bad guys, they're telling me what it says. I'm just quoting them, and then I'm going, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, when someone tells you who they are, you tend to believe them.
Right. In part, but some of these people, like, again, this person was a 33-degree Freemason, Foster Bailey. He says, it is possible that the coming Masonic work, when the new age dawns and another race emerges in the great and mystic chain of races, that a third pillar will stand erect. Thus, beauty will be restored in the temple, and the work of the builders move forward to another stage of completion. Now, who was Christ? You, the chief cornerstone that the builders rejected? We don't want your definition of the word, God. We're putting our definition of it. That's exactly what Satan did in the Garden of Eden. Did he really say that? Right? And you roughly in Greek, when you look it up, or is it Hebrew? One or the other. You look up Satan's name, it can mean prosecutor, whereas Christ is defense attorney. Right? And what does he do when Christ comes down here? He's quoting scripture to him. What does Christ go? Yeah, I know where you're going with that, but you're taking it out of context because this one cancels out where you're going with that. Now get away from me. This is what we're supposed to do, is test the spirits, right? What are we doing in contrast? So that means I can keep putting up Christmas trees? Yes. That means I can keep voting? Yes. That means I can keep. Whereas a Christian, I die to self daily. And this is a somebody, Paul, which a lot of people are now discrediting as a false prophet, because anything past Christ, he's not real. He says anything that comes after that, there's going to be false prophets that arise. I kid you not, I read a woman's comment on that today. I says, so you're telling me a guy who gives context and clarity of the Old Testament giving, listen, I was persecuting people, but I did know my Torah. God took away my sight, and then he helped me see clearly what I was missing. And now he's using me to help fix what's cracking in the early church. Somebody like myself is needed for this. But we can't even get that, dude, because we're trying to say, no, anything past Paul is, we can't trust it. Revelation, useless book. All we know, rapture, we don't have to worry about the rest.
Which, come on, the cornerstone literally is one of the most important parts of a building. So if a building is built upon false foundations, it will collapse. Hence why he came back in the defense of mankind to reset the cornerstone of the church. It's not hard.
It's really not, dude. But then, so you're not going to understand anything past that because you're not willing to grow and understand what does that mean as a Christian applying the word, right? Let's explain this to you, the two pillars. But again, Tammuz, this is in the center. He's doing the magician pose, as above, so below. A key to unlock your God potential, the all-seeing eye. The anchor represents hope in Freemasonry, which is what he's holding. You have a Virgin Mary equivalent, and she's sitting under the symbol of the sun, which we know Nimrod was the originator of sun god worship. So she's nodding towards him, and he is pointing up to her symbols, the sun, the moon, and the stars, queen of the heavens. This is your unholy trinity that you're worshiping, that people don't seem to realize. What did Christ say? Right? Like, render unto Caesar the things that are at Caesar's, unto the government, give to them what they needed and what you're expected of this world at this time. But don't forget your spiritual priorities first and foremost to God. Now in Kabbalah, you merge government and God. You merge Christ and country. You merge. And he's saying, remember to set your priorities correctly, separate. Dang it. Mani, mano, one eye. Etymologies there, pyramid, pi, fire. When you look up the Prometheus guy you talked about, the one painting I could find, Drew, doing the hush pose of masonry. I was like, what? Really? Ray of the sun, mid, in your midst. Fire of the sun in your midst. So money, or in Trump we trust, right? As we're getting now on his money that he's printing out. In artificial intelligence, we will be like gods. And I did this. This was my own research. I think I looked up her in like Sumerian or whatever, and then I looked up Mez. And it roughly came out to this. His Highness, the hero of divine ordinances of youth. When I put eternal, because that's roughly what he's saying, is that I'll give you eternal longevity because the father of all perfection is here, as he wrote on his emerald tablets.
Even
So,
look at, we had money, we've got
go ahead.
money right now as like, this is your God, essentially, with the American print. It's right in the open. Look,
Right.
prior to that, what was the greatest source of financial exchange in the ancient world? Gold and silver. Gold is the sun, silver is the moon. It was quite literally the ancient metallurgy symbolism of the periodic table for the ancient gods for this paradigm.
So it represents mom and dad. The sun is father, the moon is mother is what he wrote. So that's mom and dad. Nice. Thanks, Drew. I'll use that for future. I'll quote you. But yeah, So what is he doing? That's Sol Invictus, sun god worship, son of god worship. So the universe, so the soul. Do you see where counterfeit Christianity, Catholicism, is harnessing that? Again, on one side you have the globe, on the other you have Hermeticism, the stars, the study of stars, on top of the two pillars, which in America we have the two, on the Social Security. I found it interesting up in Trump Tower, he's got the two pillars, an all-seeing eye, Helios, east to west, riding his chariot with a pentagram in the middle. And he's crashing the economy, taking our Social Security. Don't know, dude. Don't know. But Chabad.org, the 7 Noahide laws, universal morality. And then Catholic, the word cathode or Catholics means universal. Interesting. So he said on Fox News, the problems of the Middle East can only be solved when all the religions come together. Okay. So Chabad, universal morality, vague, right? Your God or whatever they say it is. And then Catholic, I'm seeing a very similar connection going on. Then we can skip that. Oh, wait, the rainbow. Iris in ancient Greek meaning rainbow. I found that interesting with Siri. Somewhere over the rainbow. Oz equals gold. Osiris. The importance of the number 33, the Trinity, female, male, and female, represented mirroring each other. 33 equals 6. 6 neutrons, 6 electrons, 6 protons, but you're taking 33 and then you're multiplying that by 3. In the occult, this is what that represents. It's also the bottom, this part right here, the Hermetic Kabbalah of life. X is the very bottom of this crux of the pose that he's doing. That was the pose he was doing when he was talking in the Oval Office, Elon. And again, the money, you have the serpent scales on our money in America. It's like, guys, it's right there. It's in the open. Again, that's what the money. Temple of God, what do you think he was referring to? Is it the actual physical temple, or is it going to be like God, right, with Christ, that 3 days, right? If you want Christ to indwell you with the word of God, so you have Holy Spirit discernment, you understand what it is. That's what Holy Spirit, the gift of the Holy Spirit is to understand what the word of God actually means, not taking it out of context. Or do you want to create God in your own image? And then all this stuff again, MAGA. Trump creating himself. I gotta go pee real quick. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course. I'll
all right,
pause
give
it
me
when
2
I get done.
seconds. So, what I want to show you. So you notice this, the Ouroboros, or the 8, a mirror 33. That's what I'm seeing over the magician's head. Wearing a white tunic, red sash. And he's got the A, or the I, the I, the I, the I, the A, the God potential, the God particle. And Hermes carrying the Caduceus staff. That's where Baphomet's manhood. He's doing the same pose. So what I'm saying, they're calling, Apostle Trump, or he's just like Christ, or Christ is my savior, Trump is my president. Phrases like this I find very alarming, especially when Donald, world ruler, Trump, to deceive, to one up or outdo someone else. And just to show my work, you can look up here. It's not wiki that I'm quoting. Donald stems from Adonis. Adonis' equivalent is Dumazid. Dumazid was a Sumerian goat shepherd god. Christ separates the sheep from the goats. Dumazid's equivalent is Tammuz. You can find him in Ezekiel chapter 8. Again, an inversion of the temple ceremony. They're thinking it's after hours and God doesn't see. And God's showing Ezekiel the prophet, this is what's going on. And they think, I don't see what's going on. The abomination of my temple. They're doing a sun god ritual ceremony. Tammuz in Greek was known as Hermes, and Hermes in Rome was known as Mercury. Mercury traces directly back to Marduk and Baal, and as well, Buddha. So when I'm saying he's got name etymology to this guy, the originator of coinage, and as Warren Buffett said, tariffs can be a form of warfare. Is that something, again, with Revelation, that he goes forth to conquer, right? Yeah, and God we trump. The word became flesh with Trump's face. They set up kings, but not by me. They make princes, but without my approval. with their silver and gold, they make themselves idols to their own destruction. Hosea 8:4. He's doing the fist again, as above, so below, is an equivalent of what he's doing when he was doing the swearing into the inauguration. His hand was not on the Bible, so he has a hand on the side, hand up here. What was that? As above, so below, but not acknowledging Christ, right? You have your hand up, and then you go down. And we saw with Trump Gaza video, the golden statues and figurines all over the place. This is the last slide. So we are the temple of God. You look at the structure, and I found it very interesting because, again, it's an inversion. But what do we get in Mark and in Deuteronomy? To love your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. Therefore, brothers, as we have in Hebrews, since we have confidence to enter the most holy place by the blood of Christ, significance of the temple veil, you now can become my high priest, right? We can now have authority to speak on behalf of God's word. It's not something separate for, special people. We all have the chance to do that. And then finally, therefore the Lord said, these people draw near to me with their mouths and honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. Their worship of me is but rules taught by men. Isaiah 29:13. Again, Kabbalah is saying, oh yeah, well, this is what God means. This is what that means. But you're not actually seeking God. What they're saying, I want to run it by you with the Holy Spirit discernment, as we were talking before, approve those who are teaching us things. So we're not just taking their word for it for soothsayer's sake. We're actually going, yeah, I vetted it. I was a Bereanian. I fact checked Paul to confirm what he's saying is true, So that's all I got. I just was finding it interesting when you were saying all the stuff with the pyramids and with the time that we are in the stream of time. It's not a coincidence, especially during this election year, which Alice Bailey was saying that's when their Messiah figure is supposed to come onto the scene for the Golden Age. So are we approaching the 7 years? Are we in it? Don't know, but it's not a coincidence that we're seeing what we're seeing over there.
Not at all. And I'm going to throw out a hypothetical. May not ever happen, but it's just some dots that I'm connecting. There's definitely a weaponization of Christianity within, say, the content creator field. You've got huge TikTok people that have huge followers just via Reels. And now we're starting to get some real push within, say, the truther community, where we've got Wes Huff appearing on Rogan. And we're seeing Rogan have a lot of very pro-Christian guests lately, so much to the point where I'm thinking that Rogan's going to come out as either Catholic or Orthodox within, say, the next 12 months. Throw on top of that, we've got all this talk about pyramids and the potentiality that, via that, when we the stare at goats video, where we had the documents or the original writings of the Torah, which are combined with Islam, and we've got this true account of God. The issue I see with that is, with the likes of Wes Huff, he's very much academically minded, and if he finds documentation that can be proven to be dated with a certain period, he'll base his theology on that. So all it takes is a discovery of some kind of a vessel or a container that has true accounts of God that is dated to a time before, in which would flip all of Christian academia on its head, that these people who have put themselves into a corner of, if this is what academia and theology say is true, we have to back it. Well, if you've got an entire platform of the likes of Rogan, of Wes Huff, all these personalities which are very much doing what the evidence tells us, if the evidence is manipulated and sent down a certain path, it builds a situation in which you do have a Chrislam and a one world in religion, because they're setting up the dominoes for that to occur. So my concern is these little bits of information that have drip fed to us through the video we watched earlier, or the pyramid symbolism, they're telling us in advance that, the pyramids are going to be pretty big. The pyramids have been a mystery for mankind, for academic historians, archaeologists, for a very long time. But for them to be a part of the spiritual warfare as well, I don't put it outside the realm of possibility. And if they're trying to create this end time scenario, this one world religion going off their own playbook, They're just going through the list of events that have to take place for their own prophecy to come true.
Well, and that goes into what the people with the little season are arguing, is saying that was, no, didn't you even say in your own episode that America was founded in 1776 and in Roman numerals it equals 666? I'm like, yes, but it says that's not the start of Satan's little season. Is like they're trying to put that on there. I'm saying no, but this is the Antichrist empire. That's what I'm trying to emphasize. Is the Antichrist is the antithesis of Christ. He's going to create the illusion, right, of peace, the illusion of security. And he's doing it not through the way Christ did it, which was challenging the system, challenging the leaders. It's going to be inverted. So the fact that, like, so yeah, like the pyramid was the thing that they thought of doing on our money from the inception. You're telling me this has nothing to do with Mystery Babylon the Great? People are wearing MAGA on their head and it says, I saw on their heads Mystery Babylon the Great. I don't know, dude, but 666 and the origins of our country and Illuminati at the same time, right? Don't tell me there's nothing there, but for people to take that and say this is the start of that we just hit play and this is part of where Satan's going to be coming in. I'm like, no, you're trying to. They're going to get mad at me, but I don't care. They're trying to throw their own definition of taking something that I'm saying, and I'm like, no. What I'm trying to emphasize is that you have to have Antichrist before Lucifer would take the stage, which I highly suspect would possibly be Baron. I don't have proof, but that's just my 2 cents. I personally don't think Christians will be around when some of this stuff goes down. I think we'll be executed before all of that. All I'm saying is be wary, because this is some elements that I'm seeing and potentially could have proof. Keep your eyes open and be wary. That's all I emphasize. But that's a good point on Wet Puff. I didn't think about that.
And to their own point of view, they say that Satan's little season isn't a time in which Satan reigns, he deceives. If you were Satan and you were deceiving the world, wouldn't you deceive the world by making it a time of peace and prosperity? You wouldn't have the world in the current situation we're in now. Turmoil, war, famine, disease, pestilence, all these things that have happened for a very long time throughout all of humanity. I haven't seen 1,000 years of peace in our historical record. And the argument would be that those are all manipulated records that the Vatican and historians have manipulated and changed. Very well could be. But at the same time, I don't see the evidence that proposes that has occurred yet. I would personally, like you believe, think that we'd have to see the Antichrist first. After the Antichrist, after the war of the Antichrist and God on earth, then we would have then a millennial reign would occur, and then you'd have a little season of the devil. But the same thing, I would see if Satan was given a time on earth to deceive mankind again, that would be a time in which he tries to make people love him by making mankind a truly wonderful time and experience to be in. That would be the lie in my mind. It wouldn't be a time, golden age. It would not be a time of warfare, economic downfalls, and all around pretty bad times. I think it would be the best time for mankind in a lot of ways. And I don't think we're seeing that yet. I think we're seeing the foundations for that type of thing to be laid out, but I don't think we've come across that yet.
Well, I think you have it wrong, Drew, because the Gospel of Barnabas is going to unite us all. It's going to explain the missing 1,000 years. We just have it wrong, man.
Oh, yeah.
That's where I could see that potentially going, dude. And then they're going to look at us saying, well, see, this is the original and explains that missing loophole, so you're still wrong. But whoever adds to the book or takes away from it, a curse unto that. No, how dare you bring up that verse, you anti-Semite? What? Okay.
Well, we're already seeing elements of this within some voices in the Little Season community, and like I've always said, I'm not going to dismiss people based on their beliefs or their takes on theology. That's why we have these. That's why we have the ecclesia. That's why we have the church to discuss and share our points of view, so we can broaden our understanding of the word and how we fit into this spiritual warfare. But at the same time, some of these big pointing heads are talking about documents and scriptures written by the saints that lived during the end times.
Mm.
I'm pretty sure if we had scriptures written by the saints who fought against evil during the end times, they'd be a little bit more well known than they actually are. So they're basing a lot of their argument on falsified documents that have no historical or theological backing on them.
Right.
So it kind of turns this whole idea of non-denominational Christians into a bit of a scapegoat, because if you can get an entire group of people to fall for fake doctrine and fake scriptures, it really puts us in a position where we're all tarred with the same brush and we're all feathered
Right.
by the bad players. And that's non-denominational Christianity, which is trying to become more in line with God's and Christ's intention opposed to the physical institution of church. That's going to get a bad name. It's going to push us back into the institutions in which we have people behind pews dictating the terms of what the faith is. And I think that leads us into a situation where we have a dust vault approach to Christianity and horrible atrocities occur again. So that's why I think these psyops, these manipulative players within the field, are either doing it for their own financial gain, or they're being manipulated or being boosted because it's throwing a spanner in the works of the true church that I think is finally coming into fruition again.
Right. And a lot of stuff from what I've been hearing with Wes Huff is that he promotes a uh, interfaith aspects with a lot of his stuff, which is very dangerous because I find, even whether it's Orthodox, Catholic, whatever, I'm over here, like the fact that you're putting an adjective, can you just be Christian? And the fact you have to add a plus to it, you're no better than the LGBT community. Sorry, I'm not dissing you. That's what you want to do, but that's literally what you're doing, is saying, oh, but that's a plus to that. There's a plus to this. I'm like, stop it, because now you're telling me that's the only way. Right? And didn't they say something in the Bible where this is the way, this is the Christ, that is the Christ consciousness? Whether you're telling me that this denomination has it right, that has, it says no. It's supposed to be a personal relationship walk with God, and the fact that you need to rely on institutions of man, that should be a huge red flag, right? You would
Yeah.
think, but I'm seeing that with a lot of people who are saying, "Well, who do you listen to?" I don't usually follow. I just do my own thing. I read what people have to say, right? Because that's what's healthy. I'm in this world. See what you have to say, and I'll determine whether I think it's a thumbs up or thumbs down, right? With discernment, Holy Spirit, let me know. Does this pass the smell test? Um, which I think taps into the little season / the pyramid thing. And when we see these things, we're over here going, I don't know. Something in my gut's telling me we got to examine this a little further.
And this is the point that people need to get to. And it's great to listen to content creators. I do it myself all the time. I listen to what people have to say, but then I go and research to see what they've said is true and
Right.
accurate.
Right.
And if you ever come across a content creator that just stands by what they say as being factual and they're presenting the facts, be a little bit wary. Double check
Yeah.
them on their sources, double check them to make sure they've brought the receipts. Because someone could present a fantastic bit of information for you and they can lay out the receipts. And a lot of people just leave it at that. Oh, yeah, he presented
Right.
evidence. He told me where he got it from. Unless
Right.
you double check those receipts, they could be fraudulent, they could be misconstrued, they could be false in where they've come from. And we see that with some people who are pushing some aspects of the little season at the moment, in which they're
Right.
talking about these scriptures from the saints that have no backing. A particular podcast recently had two prominent people on it presenting the little season that had a guest on. They did not vet their guest. Live stream during this show, the guest was tampering and altering the documents he was presenting to them. And when people were calling that out in the live chat, their comments were being deleted. So that doesn't vibe well with me that these people are honest in their presentation of their theory that changing things on the fly. Not to mention they didn't vet the guests in the first place. And they're scrambling big time at the moment to try and justify their linchpin piece of evidence that there's some kind of scriptural evidence of the saints during the end times, which up until now, all of history has never found, all of the Catholic or Orthodox Church has never come across, which you would think would be heavily invested in such things. Apparently it's all conspiracy though, and we're all wrong.
Like, why would the Catholic Church even exist if they're substituting Christ while he's gone? Are you therefore
Yes.
vindicating the Catholic concept that we need to have something here until Christ comes back? Again, the theory of is a perturbed. I don't even care about all this eschatological, whatever. I don't care about.
Eschatological.
Thank you. I don't even care about all that. Like, a lot of times, Drew, what I'll do is, okay, I don't know what that is. You break it down for me, what it means to you, because that's something we've lost in today's society. Because a lot of people, they'll hear something and they're like, well, I'm a Republican or whatever equivalent, and then you automatically throw a stereotype definition of whatever that all is and entails, and then you never bother to talk to the person because you already have a predetermined bias against that. Where I'm over here, like, you break it down what it means to you. Well, let me refer you to my hero that's got I don't want to hear what your hero has to say or your podcaster or this or that. What do you think about it? And a lot of times when they do respond personally, they get quite nasty, which makes me lose credence on what you're saying, because I'm over here saying I'm willing to entertain what you had to say, but if you're always referring me to somebody else to explain it for you, that can't be of the spirit, because you should be able to rattle it off, right? And if you can't do that, kind of gives me another indication that maybe what you're believing is not 100% correct, because you should be able to articulate yourself what it means. Now, the only things I have found is the New Agers that can make that defense, and they are admitted New Agers, as I showed you before. And I'm like, so if you're an admitted New Ager and you're buying this concept of finding God within, that should also be another red flag. That New Agers and you're also would be promoting Catholicism. Well, we don't promote Catholicism, but in essence, you are. Because where did Christ go? Where is the Word of God? Where are the streets of gold? How did the River Euphrates still not like? Did it reflood itself? Under like, explain to me. Well, you just need to do more research, bro.
Yes, some people are very good at giving you the cliff notes of what they believe, but don't actually understand what they believe, because you ask them to
Right.
explain, they can't go any further than the surface level pitch that they give. And we see a lot of
Right.
that. It's not just New Ageism, it's in all aspects. And if someone truly believes in something, you would hope that they've done the due diligence and the actual research and the learning on the topic before they start speaking about it. And
Right.
to the benefit that I see in the people that I interact with, people on the coalition, guests we've had on, people you've had on your show, if people aren't certain, they have the ability to be upfront and say, I don't understand this completely, but this is what I've found. Or this is where the
Right.
research is leading to. This is what I'm currently working on. It's not, I've done all the research and this is the answer. It's
Right.
having humility to admit you don't know everything.
100%, dude. And that's the biggest thing, is like, I might be lengthy with some of my stuff, but does it look like I've been doing a lot of work? Yeah. And that's all I'm saying is I'll recommend get this book. This is my interpretation of what I've read. I am totally open for you reading it and saying absolute BS. Cool. But at least you dug into what I dug into, and you're not just saying, "Oh yeah, I just take everything that Brandon says 100%." If you're doing that, you're a cultist. I don't want cultists. I want somebody that's going to do the due diligence of digging in for yourself. That's healthy. I don't want 5-star rating. I want to be a little bit lower than that, because that means you're actually thinking about what I'm saying. And that I respect a lot more than just take my word. Trust me, bro.
Oh, it's funny. I saw a post from someone who was calling out the grifters within their own little sphere of influence. So it was quite ironic that it was someone who believes in the little season, which is, completely on them, that they believe that that's fine. They have
Yeah.
their own interpretations of things. And they had this meme, and it was the deception comes with a merch table, and they had a picture of all these persons' books that they sell at all these conferences they go to, and I've gone, well, when you put it in that scope of things, a lot of these big profile people do tend to release books quite a bit.
Well, that's sad, Drew, because people are asking me to write a book.
I know, but this is the problem. This is tarring everyone with the same brush, right?
Yes.
Because people
Right.
who do put the
Right.
work in and write books that present a case based on my research, this could be, or this is my belief. You've got
Right.
a lot of
That's what I
people
put
out
in the
there.
forward.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who out there who have come out with a body of work who have already presented themselves as being the expert on the topic.
Right.
And
Right.
they're very clear, those people, they do the circuit of interviews, they become very popular and they're right, and then they appear on Joe Rogan. I'm sorry, if you become a guest on Joe Rogan, you're there for a reason. You're not necessarily pushing out the truth.
Right. There's a reason why they said, "Yeah, we'll throw you on our show." Which is sad, because it's like, well, there's so much. I think I said that it was a pre-show. Whereas if it's becoming popular and viral, and people get angry when you diss it, that's when you know that's probably a red flag. Because what is Christianity ultimately? It's scrutinized, it's hate, it's demonized, it's constant. Again, like I said, some episodes that I think should have gone viral, those are the ones that are lower. Why? Because it's popular, it would actually be life changing, and people don't want life changing. They just want to buy truth, hear their truth coming out of your mouth. That should be another little.
It's you don't become popular by telling the truth. You become popular by telling
Correct.
people what they want to hear. An
Correct.
example of that could be I could look at any given topic at the moment or myriad of topics, and I could put that into a book and I could proclaim it to be a work of non-fiction, a work of truth. It would sell like hotcakes. If I was upfront and put out a fictional piece of work, an entertaining story, it
Right.
wouldn't gain as much traction because people want to be told their truth. People already have a
Yes.
bias or an interest area, whether that's the Bigfoot person or the alien person or
Right.
the Atlantis people. It doesn't matter. People have their niches and their interests, which is fine. That's how we all get into the truth movement. We go for that
Correct.
conspiracy junk food. It hooks our
Right.
interest and intrigue. But when you stay in that realm or in that lane and you see that as a mechanism for financial gain and influence and clout chasing, those people are very obvious. And
Yes.
unfortunately, it really does. It dismisses all the work of the people like yourself and others out there who put the time and due diligence into the research and have the humility to say, this is my belief because I may be
Right.
wrong.
Right. But again, old, new. What's the
Mhm.
Bible say? What's the occult says? You come to your own conclusion. Have a nice day. That's what I'm saying. Is and I'm seeing a lot of people. They'll probably just hit dislike because like I ain't got time for that much long. I'm like, oh, that's fine. You don't have time. Watch an hour. Listen to 30 minutes. But if you're gonna throw that out there and then not even comment as to what you didn't like about it, sorry. I don't think if you can't if you have the time to do that, or sometimes I'll see the comment. I'm like, that's the best you could do as a comeback. Like that's the thing, dude. We're living in a world where they're bashing people like yourself and I that put the time out there. We're actually just sharing a conversation. Come by the campfire. This is what the two men are talking about as we smoke a cigar by the pit. You're
It's
welcome to join us. You can laugh your eyes. Roll your eyes, laugh at us. But you're invited to the conversation. To be disrespectful of that, that's what I'm really not liking. Is I'm seeing a lot of armchair, cynical quarterbacks that have never bothered to pick up the book, never bothered to look into the fields that we've dug into. So therefore, you're now trying to give me an opinion. It's like, shh, adults are talking. I don't really want to hear what you have to say.
we've spoken about this behind the scenes that we're both very
Yeah.
lucky that the connections we've made with some of our listeners that we reach out and we speak about the growth in
Yes.
their faith and our own spiritual journey, all these wonderful things. That's the real part of this is building the ecclesia, building the church and the understanding. And unfortunately, there's a broad, huge majority, I would say, of the listenership within conspiracy theory and content creators. They want to be spoon fed the information because they don't have the time to do the research. Hey, I get it. I understand our lives are
True. True.
busy, but you have to put your own time in a little bit. It's like the
Yes.
equivalency of I'll go buy a Big Mac meal because it's quick and easy instead of
Right.
cooking a nice, nutritious meal at home. Taking the time to chop up the vegetables, to cook my steak, to make the meal, prepare it at the dinner table with my family. Instead, I'm just going to the drive-through. I'm in and out in 5 minutes. That's the equivalency here. People want the junk food delivered to them instead of the nutritious information that they build themselves. We might be the recipe book that gives them
Right.
direction,
Yes.
but they can
Yes.
add to it and change things however they want. That's the beauty of this whole thing. This search for
Yeah.
truth of faith. It's you finding your own path.
It's individualism, and I think it was Klaus Schwab that was saying one of the greatest threats to our movement is this movement of libertarianism. He didn't say libertarian party, libertarianism, which is what? I don't need government. I am going to take accountability. I am going to take personal responsibility for what I do with my life, which is great because once you're there, that's where Christ says, "You want a relationship with me? I heard you're single." Right? That's kind of what you're looking at right there. And there's no shame in that. It's saying, I will submit to this. Yes, because I understand. I now am willing to give 100% of the 100% you gave to me, right? Husbands, as Christ so loved the church, so lay down your life for your wives. Paraphrasing, but that's in essence. You get what you're doing. You're putting 100% on the line when you understand what you're doing and you're taking the time to do it yourself, right? You've been reproved. And I'll throw this back to you after this, but that's why I think heavily in Acts, were you baptized in repentance or in the Holy Spirit? Repentance. Okay, you need to be baptized in the Holy Spirit. Why? Because I personally suspect maybe a year, 6 months, something, they had to vet you, make sure you're actually getting rid of things in your life because you're proving I want the Holy Spirit to be indwelling me, because I understand all the stuff I used to do before. I don't want to do that anymore. And so it's a witness ceremony of I'm letting the old man die to self down here, so that, and it's a witness to everybody that I have witnessed you getting rid of the old man and letting it die to self. That's my 2 cents. But again, I'm admitting that I'll have to look into early church history, but that's what it symbolically makes a lot more sense that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've nailed this presentation. Thanks, Brandon. It's
Thanks, man.
not only do we go two sides of the same coin here, the clear psyops that occur within our sphere of influence and the people that we engage with, we can see people grabbing onto topics and grifting it for notoriety, clicks, gains, followers, financial gains. But we see that it's all layering back to one central point, that there is this spiritual warfare humanity is a part of, and there are nefarious forces behind the scenes that are using that. And they aren't outside of using little tiny podcasters outside of the big people like Rogan. They're using small people on little platforms. They could be using people within your own community and you wouldn't know unless you can see the signs and symbols that they put out.
Right.
And you've done a really good job at looking and connecting a lot of those dots and presenting a case for it. So thanks for coming on, mate. For the listeners, how can they follow you and find your work?
Yeah, Mana Daily Podcast, that's spelled with 2 N's, Spotify, Rumble, YouTube, and if you can support Patreon, same name, and then Kroll, Kroll-ology, _101 on Instagram, but you'll probably have to throw that on there because a lot of times I'm banned from search bars. But yeah, thanks for having me on, Drew. I really appreciate it.
No problem, brother. And I'll add those links into the show notes for the listeners. And on that note, we'll catch you all next time.